Chapter 412, Rain Emperor Reappears. Reverie _ Fist Emperor. Below, everyone cried out. That was the new housemaster of the Blood Lighthouse, the mysterious flower blossom tier elite that called himself Fist Emperor. No one knew where he came from, and yet he defeated the original Blood Lighthouse master with his extremely domineering fist techniques, becoming a leader of one of the four large forces. Stand with me and kill this slaughterer. Fist Emperor made his move, brazenly unleashing attacks towards the demonic ape. Humph, overestimating your own abilities. A flower blossom tier warrior instantly snorted. Although this Fist Emperor was certainly kick-ass, he was actually only at the first layer of the flower blossom tier. How great of a difference was between the first layer and the 9th layer of the flower blossom tier. Moreover, the demonic ape was a king amongst beasts, and the higher the tier, the stronger a king. The demonic ape's battle prowess was at least 7 stars higher than a normal flower blossom tier warrior's. For what other reason could 3 warriors at the 9th layer and 5 at the 8th layer of the flower blossom tier fail to give it a run for its money? Besides, this demonic ape's defensive power was astounding. With so many people joining hands, not even a single hair was sliced off it. It seemed completely hopeless. So be it if he were at the 9th layer of the flower blossom tier, but acting so loftily at the first layer of the flower blossom tier, wasn't that just a joke? The demonic ape was obviously unafraid, waving its claws towards Fist Emperor. Hong! The fist and the claw clashed, and the martial intent collided fiercely. 2 balls of light burst forth and formed a great explosion, shooting in all directions. Pang, 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 countless people in the surroundings were thrown off their feet, those with weaker strength even hacked blood repeatedly, while the others were with disheveled hair, appearing very disorderly. Those flower blossom tier elites revealed expressions of disbelief, each of them was shocked to the extreme. Fist Ray. How's it possible? In the sky, the demonic ape and Fist Emperor stood in the air, separated by 1,000 feet. Blood was at the corner of Fist Emperor's mouth and traces of blood were all over his body, but the demonic ape's claws also dripped with fresh blood. It finally sustained an injury in this battle. Of course, Fist Emperor's was injured more in comparison, but being able to injure the demonic ape greatly increased the morale of the masses. It turned out that the demonic ape wasn't invincible. Rain Emperor. Ling Han muttered this awe-inspiring Fist Emperor was Rain Emperor. As expected of the strongest ruler since the establishment of the Rain country, he certainly was extremely domineering. Moreover, circles of light rippled around his fist as if tangible. That was precisely Fist Ray condensed by Fist Chi, but its destructive power was countless times greater. This wasn't simply an accumulation, but a refinement on the way of the fist. Rain Emperor was past 60, and he originally looked around 50. Now, advancing into the flower blossom tier, he immediately gained 200 more years of life. In theory, he was equivalent to a normal 20-year-old, and all the functions of the body were greatly revitalized, such that even his complexion became younger. In a few more years, would Rain Emperor become a handsome man in the 20s? It was very much possible. As these thoughts flashed across Ling Han's mind, Rain Emperor already executed the Son of Heaven fist technique, battling fiercely with the demonic ape. Rain Emperor had abdicated as a ruler and was not inside the Rain country, so he couldn't possibly use the power of the nation. However, he advanced into the flower blossom tier and broke away from the confinements of mortals, connecting his body with heaven and earth. Each fist that shot out had the blessing of heaven and earth, while Son of Heaven fist technique was as fierce and domineering as ever. Genius, a true genius. Ling Han nodded. The Son of Heaven fist technique was only a black grade or earth grade technique in the hands of Qi Yongyi and the others, but in the hands of Rain Emperor, it was a heaven grade technique, even a god tier technique. This was a fist technique he created, and as long as he forged ahead vigorously on the path of the fist, his Son of Heaven fist technique would continue to improve and keep up with his tier. Given the time, Rain Emperor really could be crowned the 2 words, Fist Emperor, living up to the name. With Rain Emperor taking the front, the courage of the other flower blossom tiers naturally increased greatly as they stepped forward to attack. They certainly didn't dare to fight the demonic ape head-on, but to restrain it from the sides was more than enough. Flower blossom tier elites were flower blossom tier elites after all, their strength couldn't be fabricated. Things took a turn on the field. Before, the demonic ape had the absolute advantage, but now, both parties were tied. Rain Emperor's dominance had to be acknowledged as he turned the battle around single-handedly. Even though this was all because of Rain Emperor was only at the first layer of the flower blossom tier. Fist Ray certainly was all-conquering, and Son of Heaven fist technique increased explosively in power as his tier increased, but his tier being low was ultimately a great weakness. Rain Emperor continued to be injured by the demonic ape, and although he still fought hard, anyone could see that Rain Emperor couldn't endure for much longer. Once Rain Emperor was defeated, the situation would return to as it was before. In that moment, everyone's battle intent dropped drastically, beginning to consider retreat. Ha ha ha, did I come late? With a long laughter, another extremely domineering figure appeared, covered with intertwining sword lights and emitting a overbearing presence. The world's second sword, Yao Huiyu. He was also at the first layer of the flower blossom tier, and at the same time a king amongst martial artists who formed at least 9 flashes of sword chi. Moreover, he was a bright disciple of Heaven's sword sect who knew what surprising trump cards he had. Come fight. Cheng, Yao Huiyu's unsheathed his sword and charged unhesitatingly at the demonic ape. With a sword strike, he yelled, "Get out of my way, this is my opponent." This one was more arrogant than the one before, he actually wanted to fight the demonic ape alone. If he were at the 9th layer of the flower blossom tier, then there was naturally hope. If Rain Emperor reached the 9th layer, he would also have the right to fight the demonic ape, but the problem was that the difference was too great for both their tiers. Neither one was the demonic ape's opponent, as the demonic ape was infinitely close to the spiritual infant tier. The demonic ape was infuriated. In its eyes, these humans were simply sheep, with at most a few wolves that could cause it some trouble. But wanting to defeat it? Not in a million years. It let out a great roar as its body actually cracked. What, did it kill itself from losing its mind to anger? Everyone very much hoped that this vicious creature would die this way, but that was obviously not realistic. Under their astounded gazes, the demonic ape started to crack open from the nape and all the way to the waist. However, no blood oozed out, and instead 2 demonic apes popped out. No, not 2 entire demonic apes, only the upper half of the body. 3 heads and 6 arms. The 3 demonic apes roared angrily at the same time. The sound waves were like the tide, turning into massive waves that charged at everyone. The flower blossom tier elites hurriedly went up to neutralize it, otherwise, if this tidal sound wave struck, all the spiritual pedestal tier warriors would explode from the shock. Pang, 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 the sound waves were dissolved by the flower blossom tier elites jointly while Yao Huiyu raised his sword and charged at the demonic ape with an imposing manner. The demonic ape waved its arms, and with a pang, Yao Huiyu was sent flying. The demonic ape with 3 heads and 6 arms was truly like a spiritual infant tier elite, displaying its unparalleled position. Chapter 413, Collapsed Mountain reveals demonic river. Reverie _ Mystical power. Ling Han said inwardly, this was the golden blood demonic ape's innate mystical power. It was very strong, 3 heads and 6 arms with each upper body equivalent to a demonic ape. Its battle prowess was earth-shaking. One demonic ape could firmly suppress everyone, and now with 2 more, who could resist it? Interesting. Interesting. Yao Huiyu's battle intent was like fire as he raised his sword and attacked back. His expression was filled with high-spirited battle intent, he seemed to be extremely excited. You have the right to make me attack seriously. His expression turned stern as Mysterious 3000 was activated. One sword light looked as if it could shine over the 5 regions. Rain Emperor also returned to the fray, throwing domineering punches continuously with earth-shaking momentum. With these two taking the front, the others stepped up one after another. Being able to cultivate to the Flower Blossom tier, who would be a fool? The Demonic Ape's 3-head and 6 arms ability might be astounding, but it couldn't possibly be activated endlessly. Furthermore, the ape would become weakened after unleashing an ultimate move like this. When the time came, they'd take the Demonic Ape's head. For Flower Blossom tier elites, the Heavenly Luck Stone was of no use at all, but the Demonic Ape was different in that it was King tier and the peak stage of the Flower Blossom tier. Its flesh was definitely very tonic. The Demonic Ape roared and waved its 6 arms. Its battle prowess was extremely frightening as it completely suppressed the crowd, but Yao Huiyu kept firing out the Mysterious 3000, posing a great threat to the Demonic Ape, while Rain Emperor who formed Fist Ray also had shocking destructive power. The two were riddled with wounds and kept hacking out blood, but they still stabilized the situation. Now the key was whether Yao Huiyu and Rain Emperor could endure longer, or the Demonic Ape's mystical power could be maintained longer. This would decide which side the victory would belong to. It was really hard to predict. No one knew how much longer the Demonic Ape's mystical power would remain active, but everyone could see Yao Huiyu and Rain Emperor's injuries. Those were definitely not light injuries. Being scratched by the Demonic Ape once, bones would be plain to see and blood splatter across the sky. Bleeding alone was a great problem. Ling Han watched and muttered inwardly, "These people are so desperate. If they really defeat the Demonic Ape and run into cave to see that the Heavenly Luck Stones are gone, will they go crazy? This Demonic Ape might be wild and violent, but it's not stupid. Could this be due to the Heavenly Luck Stone suppressing the chaos intent? It's rumored that Heavenly Luck Stone is birthed by the fate of heaven and earth and is a manifestation of heaven and earth's will. It's not out of question for it to be able to resist demonic chi. Since I've taken away the Heavenly Luck Stone, this Demonic Ape will definitely be mentally aberrated from the demonic chi. When the time comes, it'll just be another muddle-headed vicious creature that knows only slaughter." The great battle was still going on. Yao Huiyu and Rain Emperor were both strong-willed and battle maniacs. Fighting with a demonic ape that was a king amongst beasts would be of immense benefit in the future on their paths in martial arts. Therefore, they would rather fight desperately and be heavily injured and still continue the fight, believing that the gains would definitely be greater. However, the demonic ape quit. It wasn't stupid. Fighting desperately here had no benefit. Retreat. It immediately turned around and shot towards the mountain valley, worming right into it. "Not playing with you guys anymore," Rain Emperor and Yao Huiyu exclaimed, following it and entering the mountain cave. Seeing this, the other Flower Blossom tier warriors naturally didn't want to lag behind. Chasing and killing the demonic ape was secondary. The key was that the Heavenly Luck Stone was inside. Pung! 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 Entering the cave, everyone naturally couldn't see the combat situation and dared not enter to watch, as it would really kill them. They could only hear thunder-like sounds of bombardment, moving the earth and shaking the mountain as if the world was about to collapse. At least half an hour passed. The entire mountain was sent flying and crashed 5,000 feet away with a pung. Instantly, the strong impact shoveled up dirt as the ground from afar arched over 2 feet high and charged towards the mountain valley. For spiritual pedestal tier and spiritual ocean tier warriors, this impact was trifling. They only looked at it once and turned their gaze towards the inside of the mountain valley again. The entire mountain was sent flying, so it naturally left behind only a desolate land. However, the Flower Blossom tier elites rose into the air one after another as if running for their lives. The mountain disappeared and left a deep, massive pit. This pit was like a river filled with dense and indiffusible black mist that kept evolving into all sorts of shapes such as beasts, humans, and weapons. It was precisely this black mist that made the flower blossom tears flee helter-skelter. Demonic Qi. Ling Han was astounded at such dense demonic qi. Could a part of Azura Demon Emperor's body be suppressed underneath? Or was it a massive black stone? Facing this black qi, even the demonic ape feared it instinctively, escaping swiftly and not wanting to contact it at all. Who would have thought that underneath the heavenly luck stone was such a piece of demonic land? Could this be the source of Dark Demon Forest's demonic qi? Such terrifying demonic qi, even from this far, it makes me have the urge to go mad. Step back a bit more. If too much demonic qi enters the body, then one's mind will be completely chaotic, turning into a puppet that knows only slaughter. Everyone stepped back one after another. Losing the mountain that suppressed it, the demonic qi gushed out uncontrollably as if it were going to completely cover the entire Dark Demon Forest. Gagaga, thanks everyone. A coarse voice sounded, followed by a grating sound. A bronze casket slid over as if it had feet. The Thousand Corpse Sect, someone immediately shouted, and everyone instantly got goosebumps. This sect was definitely detested by all, and everyone called for their beating. They were too shameless and immoral, stealing the corpses of elites to refine them into corpse soldiers. Did they still have any humanity? Elder Nine Clouds was also amongst the crowd, showing up to do nothing because once he attacked with full strength, he couldn't conceal his corpse qi at all. Moreover, the people of the Thousand Corpse Sect were strong only with corpse soldiers. Their own battle prowess was actually quite normal. He couldn't help but be irritated. Which idiot was this within the sect, actually appearing in front of the world with such poise? Won't this bring hatred to the sect? Ling Han's expression changed slightly as he recognized this bronze casket. 3 Lives Corpse Casket, Ronghuan Xian. No, now it wasn't the true Ronghuan Xian, but Azura Demon Emperor. If it were the true Ronghuan Xian, he should desire for the heavenly luck stone and avoid demonic qi like plague. But now, with Azura Demon Emperor controlling his flesh, Ronghuan Xian was definitely charging at the demonic qi, going for the black stone. For others, demonic qi was poison that mustn't be contacted. However, for Azura Demon Emperor, that was a greatly tonic thing. If there truly were a massive black stone underneath that was obtained by Azura Demon Emperor, what sort of calamity would be caused? Ling Han didn't hesitate for a single second. He leapt right out, unleashed the Demon Birth Sword, and struck at 3 Lives Corpse Casket. Both were 10th tier spirit tools, so it really couldn't be confronted without using the Demon Birth Sword. Hong, sword chi landed and 3 Lives Corpse Casket was forced to stop as the sword chi shocked it, its rays blinding. You're actually still not dead. Peng, the lid of the casket opened and Ronghuan Xian's figure appeared. His gaze quickly caught Ling Han, emitting a frightening chill. This time, this lord will make you disappear completely. Chapter 414, Primal Chaos Source Rock. Reverie _ Great, now it was even livelier with all sorts of demons and beasts showing up. Dreg of Thousand Corpse Sect, how dare you to come here, you court death. A flower blossom tier elite attacked, swatting at Ronghuan Xian. Everyone had the right to execute a disciple of such an evil sect, no matter how high or low. Even if Ronghuan Xian had the title of an alchemist, it would be the same. It could be inferred just how despised and resented the Thousand Corpse Sect was. Even after a millennium, the sight of this sect still gave people the urge to kill. Gagaga, want to kill this lord? You're still 10 millennia too early. Ronghuan Xian laughed loudly, but he only paid lip service as he immediately wormed into 3 Lives Corpse Casket. His main body was certainly undying, but his flesh was too fragile. Only at the 9th layer of the Gushing Spring tier, he couldn't possibly resist a Flower Blossom tier warrior's attacks. Wang! 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 The attacks landed on the 3 Lives Corpse Casket, and instantly, this spirit tool was activated. Vein-like lines shined as if the entire casket was coming to life. Shui, a pillar of light, surged out and turned into a skeleton soldier with a pike in hand, thrusting towards the Flower Blossom Tier elite. Pooh! With a spear thrust, the Flower Blossom Tier's left shoulder was penetrated. Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned. That was a Flower Blossom Tier warrior, but he couldn't even block an attack. If he hadn't evaded in time, his heart might have been shocked. It was too terrifying. What sort of treasure was that, being able to suppress even Flower Blossom Tier opponents? However, some people looked towards Ling Han with strange gazes, because Ling Han also struck it once earlier. Why did nothing happen at all? The sword in the youngster's hand, could it actually be a high-tier spirit tool? Ling Han also gasped in surprise inwardly. Both were 10th tier spirit tools, but 3 Lives Corpse casket was too kick-ass. Hiding inside the casket, one would not only have invincible defense, but also have thorns attached to oneself. Whoever hit it would be out of luck. More importantly, 3 Lives Corpse casket could also move on its own like a carriage. It was very convenient. However, if Ling Han was made to hide in a casket, he definitely wouldn't do it. 3 Lives Corpse casket. That's 3 Lives Corpse casket. Elder Nine Cloud's eyes brightened up. Thousand Corpse sect had 3 priceless treasures, which were the demonic noise saber, the pond of the underworld, and the 3 Lives Corpse casket. However, the pond of the underworld wasn't a spirit tool, but an inherited land of Thousand Corpse sect. It was also a holy place for cultivation. Cultivating inside for a year could equal 1 year on the outside. But its location was unknown since several millennia ago. Today, the demonic noise saber was grasped by the current sect master. Followed by the appearance of the 3 Lives Corpse casket, it meant 2 out of 3 prize treasure appeared. Was appearance of the pond of the underworld still something distant? Was the Thousand Corpse sect going to prosper? Elder Nine Clouds was mad with excitement. If he could obtain the spirit tool that could accommodate living things from Ling Han, the Thousand Corpse sect could enter its golden age, even surpassing the dynasty several millennia ago. Ronghua Xian laughed eerily and said, "This lord won't play with you guys anymore. Once this lord obtains the primal chaos source stone and refines it as this lord's body, the entire world will tremble under this lord's clutches." Primal chaos source stone? Was it the black stone? The question flashed across Ling Han's mind as he attacked unhesitatingly once again. He definitely wouldn't allow Azura Demon Emperor to obtain the black stone. The Thousand Corpse sect could still be suppressed no matter how strong they were, but Azura Demon Emperor? That was a god spirit, and once his battle prowess fully recovered, the vast lands would face calamity. Insolent boy, when this lord's cultivation is recovered, this lord will kill you first. Ronghua Xian yelled angrily, steering the 3 Lives Corpse casket and charging into the demonic chi. No one dared to stop him as the misfortune of the Flower Blossom Tier earlier was still in front of them and no one wanted to share the same fate. Ling Han chased swiftly after, and Hunyo naturally charged into the demonic chi as well. The two instantly disappeared from everyone's sight. The demonic chi was not only dense enough to block vision, but also had a strong effect of cutting off divine sense. Consequently, even Flower Blossom Tears immediately lost the trace of the 3 people. At this moment, everyone only thought of 2 words, damned idiot. That was demonic chi. Couldn't it be seen that even Flower Blossom Tier elites weren't willing to be contaminated? What were a few small spiritual ocean tier and gushing spring tier warriors trying to do by running into it? The Flower Blossom Tears carried out a fierce battle again, unleashing their attacks at the demonic ape. These were separate matters. Boy, don't think that this lord will fear you just because your tier is higher than this lord's. Ronghua Xian's voice came from within the casket. He was only at the 9th layer of the gushing spring tier and couldn't possibly rival Ling Han. When this lord refines some primal chaos demonic chi and increases in cultivation, retrieving the primal chaos source rock, your life will be taken as blood sacrifice for this lord's rebirth. Oh, that primal chaos source rock or whatever can make you stronger? Ling Han said indifferently. Rong Huanxian snorted and said, "This lord transformed from a sliver of the world's primal chaos demonic chi and suffered for not having flesh, which was why this lord was suppressed for several millennia and split into 9 parts. However, primal chaos source rock and this lord are of the same source as one of the world's toughest matter. This lord only has to refine it into a body. Who in the world would be able to rival this lord then? When the time comes, this lord's flesh will be invincible, equipped with overwhelming demonic psychic powers. All will become this lord's slaves." This old monster was so honest all of a sudden, even revealing his trump card. Thinking again, he actually didn't reveal any secrets, saying only where he came from but not how to annihilate him. No wonder that several millennia ago, his body could only be dismembered then suppressed. He wasn't a living thing in the true sense, but rather a manifestation of demonic chi. Rong Huanxian didn't simply boast, as he was in the process of absorbing the demonic chi. Wang, the presence he emitted was strengthening, although it was still at the gushing spring tier, it could clearly be sensed that his tier was improving extremely quickly. Ling Han sighed. Why did he always encounter monsters? Ideas flashed across his mind. With the protection of the 3 lives corpse casket, he definitely wouldn't be able to stop Rong Huanxian's tier increase. However, where did the demonic chi in this land come from? There was definitely a black stone that released the demonic chi, but it was suppressed by the large mountain and could only spread through the ground into the forest. Now, it was as if it turned into an ocean. If he retrieved the black stone, or the primal chaos source rock in Rong Huanxian's words, then everything could be taken care of. Ling Han decided on spot and pulled on Hunyou to leave, beginning to search for the land where the demonic chi originated. He asked Small Tower about primal chaos source rock and demonic chi. Small Tower unexpectedly knew the relationship between the two, telling him several secrets. If Azura Demon Emperor really absorbed the primal chaos source rock, then he at least wouldn't be killed on those vast lands, as primal chaos source rock was too hard. However, this didn't seem to make a difference. Azura Demon Emperor was originally a ball of demonic chi, but couldn't he still cause disasters for millennia even after being split into 9 parts? Demonic chi was like the vast ocean. Ling Han's divine sense couldn't be spread out and black spots already began to appear on his body. The divine sense was the same, no longer clear as water, but instead filled with violent impulses. In contrast, Hunyou was perfectly fine, but an indistinct light appeared in her dantian, as if a vein-like pattern had been lit up. The little girl was much more freakish than he was. He flashed into the Black Tower and immediately summoned the power of the Black Tower to dispel the demonic chi in his body. His skin returned quickly to normal at a visible speed and his divine sense opened up, clear and immaculate. Ling Han exited the Black Tower again. With the experience of resisting the Black Stone, he could survive for several minutes even within such dense demonic chi. "Nyo, let's race to see who can find a rock like this." Ling Han smiled at Hunyou as he dangled a small black stone in his hand. "Okay." Hunyou immediately said in a crisp voice, appearing very excited as she shot out. If Nyo wins, Nyo wants to eat 3 roasted chicken drumsticks. Chapter 4:15, Merging of the Demonic Body. Reverie _ Ling Han and Hunyou went on a great search, but this large area was covered by demonic chi and obstructed eyesight and divine sense, largely affecting their scouting ability. Even Hunyou was no exception. For 3 consecutive days, they obtained no results. This was the area of a mountain. Even if it wasn't large, it wouldn't be small either. Rong Huanxian's strength was increasing rapidly. He obtained the inheritance of the 1,000 Corpse sect and could only cultivate corpse chi, but an old monster entered his body, granting him the ability to cultivate demonic chi. Under the endless devouring, it was almost 1 day for 1 layer. Rong Huanxian broke through to the spiritual ocean tier after 2 days, and today he was already at the second layer of the spiritual ocean tier, a shocking progress. At this rate, another 7 days and he would reach the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, and then 2 more days and he would be at the spiritual pedestal tier. Once he entered the spiritual pedestal tier, with the mystic arts Azura Demon Emperor grasped on top of 3 lives corpse casket, he would possess sufficient confidence to suppress Ling Han. And after another 10 days, 20 days, and 30 days, what cultivation would Rong Huanxian reach? It just so happened that under the 3 lives corpse casket's protection, Rong Huanxian was also as if he'd possessed the Black Tower. No one could harm him, at least, Ling Han currently couldn't. He had to find the black stone fast. While Rong Huanxian was only absorbing the drifting demonic qi, he still could advance so shockingly fast. Then if he truly refined the black stone as his body, just how strong would he be? Ling Han and Hunyo continued to search, and as each day passed, they became more and more pressured. Ling Han had already stopped caring about the battle outside. If the demonic ape didn't run, it would definitely be annihilated. After all, the human elites rushed over continuously, so what if the demonic ape was a beast king? On the 11th day, Rong Huanxian broke through to the spiritual pedestal tier. Such speed would make anyone envious. Gagaga, this lord has come to find you. Rong Huanxian's grim laughter sounded within the demonic qi. So fast. He had no need to increase his tier to the height of the flower blossom tier or the spiritual infant tier, because he would soon abandon this Bedino living creature's flesh was truly suitable carrier for his soul. Only the primal chaos source rock was the best. Therefore, he only needed enough strength to suppress Ling Han, taking down that brat and obtaining the mysterious spirit tool which kept even him preoccupied. Inside the demonic qi, his battle prowess received a surprising amplification, so the spiritual pedestal tier was definitely enough. On the other hand, he was truly scared that Ling Han would find the primal chaos source rock, ruining his opportunity. Ling Han bellowed, notifying Hunyo to meet up with him in case she encountered Rong Huanxian and suffered a loss. On this land demonic qi pervaded, his and Hunyo's senses were greatly restricted, especially Hunyo's. Her forte was speed, but when she couldn't even see clearly, blindly running around would get her into a mishap. Old devil, come battle with this young grandpa. Ling Han laughed loudly. He seemed young, but his soul was from millennia ago. He felt somewhat like an old man faced with anyone here. He didn't need to pretend to be immature only in front of Azura Demon Emperor, as he certainly was much younger. Stubborn brat, when this lord overran the world, your oldest ancestors were drinking milk somewhere. How dare you act insolently in front of this lord? Today, this lord will annihilate you completely. This lord is very interested in that treasure you bear. Rong Huanxian sneered. Why so much useless talk, just bring it on. Ling Han retreated in a rush. He had no interest in fighting Rong Huanxian as the latter had the 3 lives corpse casket and was unkillable just like him. Finding the black stone was the kingly way. Rong Huanxian flew over, sticking out his right hand and clenching it. The demonic qi in this space danced wildly, turning into a giant hand that snatched at Ling Han. Gagaga, unexpected, right? This lord originally manifested from primal chaos demonic qi, and my battle prowess here can increase tenfold. Let's see where you'll hide. Rong Huanxian laughed loudly. Not necessarily. Ling Han's figure flashed, unleashing a punch and activating the thunder battle armor. Instantly, lightning surged and turned into an 8-headed war elephant, greeting the black hand. Hong! The lightning war elephant charging at the black hand was as if a mantis trying to stop a chariot, shattering its own body yet not even able to slow down the black hand by single bit. As expected, Rong Huanxian said that his battle prowess here could increase tenfold, and that definitely wasn't a bluff. Die for this lord. Rong Huanxian clenched his right hand. The black hand also clenched tightly, devouring Ling Han's figure. However, Rong Huanxian immediately frowned because he felt Ling Han had already disappeared. The attack didn't grasp Ling Han. As expected, when the black hand disappeared, Ling Han also appeared unscathed. Old devil, although you shrunk into a turtle shell for in the past few days, I couldn't do anything about you. However, if you want to hurt me, that's also a pipe dream. Ling Han laughed loudly. Rong Huanxian's gaze was chilly and his expression filled with anger, but he knew Ling Han was right. The two of them certainly couldn't deal with the other. He felt a fit of irritation inside, but didn't care too much as he already realized that inside Devil Sky Mystery Realm. Then the next best thing was to find the primal chaos source rock and refine it as his body and then suppress Ling Han, seizing the treasure on the ladder. Line Han, Nyo found the large rock. Nyo's one. Hu Nyo's cheerful voice resounded as a black stone the size of a buffalo ran over with 2 tiny feet on the bottom. This scene was somewhat strange. It was mainly because Hu Nyo was too small while carrying the rock, only her 2 feet could be seen. Gagaga, you specially delivered the primal chaos source rock for this lord, thanks so much. Rong Huanxian exulted. He no longer paid attention to Ling Han, snatching at the black stone with a palm. Once he touched the black stone, he would transform into his true body and enter it, abandoning the current human shell. When he completely refined the primal chaos source rock as his own body and found the other 8 suppressed remnant souls, would he even need to fear Heaven Sword Sect in its former years? This is Ling Han's, not for you. Hu Nyo yelled, dissatisfied. Xiao, the black stone vanished into thin air and Rong Huanxian's palm snatched nothing. He hurriedly turned his head, only to see that Hu Nyo carried the rock and appeared before Ling Han. Teleportation. The little girl actually used the art of teleportation. Rong Huanxian was somewhat dumbfounded as teleportation involved the great Tao of space, and even in his world, only a few could master it. However, a little girl of the mortal world could use it with ease whilst carrying such a large primal chaos source rock. It made even him feel it beyond comprehension. Moreover, he also just noticed why could Hu Nyo also be unafraid of the effects of demonic chi? Nyo, good one. Ling Han guffawed, picking up Hu Nyo in one scoop, ready to put this little girl inside the Black Tower at any time. No, that belongs to this lord. Rong Huanxian hurriedly dove over. Seeing the black stone inches before him, he couldn't help but be overjoyed. Primal chaos source rock as a body was a dream of his kind. Touched it. Azura Demon Emperor unhesitatingly removed his soul from Rong Huanxian's body and wormed into the black stone. Chapter 4:16, Terribly Conned. Ha! Ling Han laughed loudly. With a casual toss of his hand, the black rock inside his grasp was immediately thrown out. No, the Azura Demon Emperor roared in fury. He had indeed possessed the primal chaos source rock, but the problem was this piece of primal chaos source rock was much too small. It was actually the size of a peanut and there was only a pitifully small amount of chaos source within. When members of his race took over the bodies of other living things, they indeed paid no mind to the build of their victims. It could be as small as the golden mosquito ant or as big as the howling heaven beast, and they could adapt anyways. Moreover, even if they were not satisfied, then they could always change to a new body. At worst, they would only experience a period of weakness. But the primal chaos source rock was different. Once fused, this was an irreversible process. He could never come back out. If the primal chaos source rock was big enough and possessed sufficient chaos source, this would give them unlimited space to expand. They would be able to swallow all the souls in this world and fuse with them. They would then be able to endlessly increase their personal power until it reached the maximum amount the primal chaos source rock could allow. Which also meant that the bigger the primal chaos source rock was, the more chaos source it contained, and thus the bigger his potential to become stronger. But the problem was not that the primal chaos source rock was too big, but that it was too small, much too small. It was so small that it could only accommodate a shattered piece of his soul. Moreover, there was only a scrap of chaos source inside, and he could not possibly increase his power with that. What did that mean? It meant that his power would eternally stagnate on this level, and he might not even be able to reabsorb the other 8 pieces of his soul. Of course, there was still a way to solve this matter, and that was for this piece of his soul would be swallowed. How could this be? The primal chaos source rock he had seen was definitely not as small as this. Ling Han laughed quietly. The instant that he was knocked down by the Azura Demon Emperor, he drew the large black rock into the black tower, then withdrew the small black rock and shoved it at the former. Furthermore, the chaos source in this small black rock had been largely sucked out by small tower, so there was only a slight sliver remaining. Sure enough, the Azura Demon Emperor did not even pause to think, overwhelmed by his anxiety. The moment he sensed the aura of the black rock, he immediately streamed inside. Small Tower had told him of the relationship between Primal Chaos Demonic Chi and Primal Chaos Source Rock. Thus, he came up with this plan in that single instant and managed to successfully dupe the Azura Demon Emperor. That small black rock actually began to shake, trying its best to transform into human form. Ling Han rushed forward and delivered a kick. "Old demon, I'll see you next time." The pitiful Azura Demon Emperor was in the process of fusing with the Primal Chaos Source Rock. Since the two of them came from the same source, this process, once begun, was unstoppable. So how could he possibly be capable of defending himself? He instantly flew off into distance from the force of the kick. "You damn human boy, just wait, I will definitely kill you." Azura Demon Emperor roared in fury. He had been horribly conned. "I've finally vented my grudge." Ling Han laughed loudly. Now, the Azura Demon Emperor only possessed 1/9 of the power he'd possessed at his strongest at most. Even if he possessed an immortal body, he could still be suppressed, and it would be much easier to deal with him in this way. And now that the Primal Chaos Source Rock had been removed, the demonic chi in this place would slowly disperse until it became nothing. By that time, this dark devil forest would be history. Phew, he was in a good mood. Ling Han laughed. Being able to ruthlessly con an old demonan immortal monster from millennia past caused a sense of fulfillment to spring up unbidden. There was only one word for it: invigorating. He heard moaning and saw that Rong Huanxian was actually getting to his feet staggeringly. Fuck, this guy was still alive? Ling Han knew that his body had not died before, but being taken over by the Azura Demon Emperor, his consciousness was actually not erased? When had the Azura Demon Emperor become so kind? "You never thought that I would be still alive, right?" Rong Huanxian stared fixatedly at Ling Han. He had never been on good terms with Ling Han from the moment they met. This Rong Huanxian was the original Rong Huanxian, and also the real Rong Huanxian. Ling Han sighed and said, "Sure enough, good people don't live long, whereas evil survives 1,000 years. He's still not dead even with that. Ha ha ha, I refine corpse chi, so I won't die so easily." Rong Huanxian stared at Ling Han and said with a cold smirk, "I not only did not die, furthermore, my power is superior to yours. AI, my previous good mood has now been ruined." Ling Han shook his head. "If we're being honest here, I am your savior at the very least. Is this how you are going to repay me? I will refine you into a corpse soldier and allow you to exist forever. That'll be good enough, right?" Rong Huanxian laughed loudly and took the initiative to attack. A smile appeared at the corners of Ling Han's lips as he said, "It seems that you are being smug too soon." He advanced to parry the oncoming attack, without any signs of fear. Pang! The two attacks collided and Rong Huanxian was forced into a continuous retreat. A flush appeared on his pale face as if he had dabbed blusher on his cheeks. How could this happen? Rong Huanxian exclaimed in shock. He actually lost to Ling Han in a clash of force. Let me kindly explain it to you. Ling Han smiled slightly. You managed to enter the spiritual pedestal tier because of the demonic chi, but it was the Azura Demon Emperor who was guiding things. You yourself do not cultivate demonic chi, so how could you possibly make full use of that kind of power? Moreover, you are only in the first layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, and without the demonic chi in this place compounding with your own ability, I will be able to suppress you 17 or 18 times with one arm. Rong Huanxian fumed angrily. A brat in the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier actually pointed at his nose and said that he was just in the first layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. How could that still be logical? However, there was one thing that Ling Han was right about, and that was none of the members of the Thousand Corpse sect was known for their own personal ability, but rather depended on their corpse soldiers. He now had no corpse soldiers to help him, so he was only an ordinary cultivator of the spiritual pedestal tier. Furthermore, he was a cultivator that had just broken through to the spiritual pedestal tier. Putting Ling Han aside, even Shenzhong Cheng would be able to kill him. Now that I've regained my body, I will begin to cultivate corpse chi again. When I obtain powerful corpse soldier, I will come to seek you again. Rong Huanxian left behind a line that fit the situation, and jumped into the 3 live corpse caskets. Hong, the spirit tool activated and fled. Since he could not beat his foe, then he of course had to flee, or what? Staying for supper? I temporarily suppressed a problem, but I've also gotten a new problem. I don't know if this is right or wrong, Ling Han mumbled. He had now split Rong Huanxian into 2. Though the ability of the Azura Demon Emperor was under control now, he had transformed into a real undying body, whereas Rong Huanxian was revived. With the protection of the 3 live corpse caskets, he, too, possessed an undying body. The so-called undying body is only relative. Ling Han soon smiled confidently. As long as my power is strong to a certain extent, even if Rong Huanxian hit himself in the 3 live corpse caskets, I would still be able to kill him with a shock wave. As for the primal chaos source rock, if this thing was really indestructible, how could it have been shattered in the first place? The small black rock from inside the brain of the giant serpent had most likely fallen off from the big black rock. This meant that the primal chaos source rock could be shattered. I've already obtained the primal chaos source rock and the heavenly luck stone, now I only need to get the crimson red chilling ice grass, and this trip to the dark devil forest will be over. Not just over, merely the heavenly luck stone had made this trip more than worth it. Furthermore, though Ling Han could not use the primal chaos source rock, its value was estimated to be 100-fold, 1,000-fold, or even million-fold the value of the heavenly luck stone. One had to understand that this was an item that could be useful to the Black Tower. Ling Han planned to leave behind a small piece to improve his divine sense, the rest would be refined by the Black Tower, which would extract the source power inside to repair itself. The 2 of them advanced in the opposite direction of the valley. He did not want to encounter anyone else at this time. He only wanted to quietly collect the crimson red chilling ice grass, then return to Extreme Yang City. When he obtained the last ingredient, the 9-leaf black Ganoderma, he would finally be able to concoct the Restore Spirit pill. Chapter 4:17, Finding a Sparring Partner. Ling Han kept only a small piece of black rock, whereas he passed the rest over to small tower to use to repair the ladder. In an instant, the whole black rock was turned to dust, and the chaos source inside was completely extracted by small tower. He could not help but think that if Azura Demon Emperor entered the Black Tower, then even if he obtained a humongous piece of the primal chaos source rock and made it into his body, it would be pointless, as it would still be absorbed completely and turned to dust. Ling Han did not immediately head to where the crimson red chilling ice grass was. He was still in the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier now, so he had to wait some more. He decided to head there after he broke through to the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Even if he went there now, he could only sit and wait, and this did not fit Ling Han's personality. As a result, he and Hunyo stollied around the forest. There were still a lot of other spiritual herbs here, and since they still had time, why shouldn't they go and find some? Their harvest was quite good, but after a few more days, the majority of the demonic qi here had dispersed and more people surged into this area. Thus, Ling Han's yield also went on decline. He rubbed his chin, and ultimately decided that he could not waste any more time. Thus, he carved on the trunk of a tree, "Ding Er Go One, come and chase your young master." These words were naturally left for Ding Yuan Xian. He still wanted to make use of the ladder to improve himself, breaking through to the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier as soon as possible with the man's help. As he moved, he kept carving those words here and there. He believed that with Ding Yuan Xian's ability, the latter should be able to find him from the clues he had left behind. Hunyo followed his example and began carving on the tree trunks as well. However, don't look at how pretty and delicate she was. The letters she carved were all bent and misshapen. But she still proudly crouched down and carved happily, completely unembarrassed about her poor writing. Only a day passed, and true enough, Ding Yuan Xian had caught up. "I cannot deny it, you are indeed very courageous," Ding Yuan Xian said icily, flames of rage burning in his eyes. This young man killed his younger brother and now still dared to actively provoke him. He was really about to die from his towering rage. "I'm just average, but the second bravest in this world." Ling Han smiled. "Average, but number 1 in the world," Hunyo said without any modesty, patting her tiny chest. "You too?" Ding Yuan Xian roared in fury. His figure pounced in attack towards Ling Han and Hunyo. His spiritual pedestal shone, surrounding him and making him appear as if he himself was a god. Ling Han laughed loudly and drew his sword to attack. Instantly, 8 flashes of sword qi shot out. When he saw this, Ding Yuan Xian was naturally infuriated. This guy only managed to gain his 8th flash of sword qi because of the pressure he had put on him. When he thought of that fact, he felt as if he was burning in flames of fury. Could it be that now that this brat had had a taste of success and once again took him to be a polishing stone for his own power? However, he stared fixatedly at the demon birth sword. Previously, he only knew that this was a high-level spirit tool, which gave him a shock that caused his spirit to throb. Yet afterwards, when he saw that this sword was actually capable of causing the 3 lives corpse caskets to vibrate, he as well as everyone else present of course knew that the demon birth sword was definitely not something as ordinary as a level 6 or even a level 7 spirit tool. Who would not covet it? This sword is now mine. He humphed coldly, moving as quick as lightning. Ling Han tried his utter best and launched a counterattack at Ding Yuan Xian. However, there was too much of a gap between their respective cultivation levels. As a result, Ling Han was very soon riddled with wounds. One could even see the white of bones from some of the deeper wounds. Thankfully, the indestructible heaven scroll was too mighty, and allowed him to maintain his life force at a shocking state of vigor. It was only when he bled so much that even his sight was beginning to blur that Ling Han finally began to flee. As he fled, he kept drawing out ginseng and other nutritious medicines and devoured them like crazy. He also used the indestructible heaven scroll to recover his own injuries. As he retreated, he continued to battle. He was not fleeing because he was losing. He tried his absolute best in this battle, but after 3 days, he had still reached his limit and had no choice but to duck into the Black Tower. At this point, there was no single patch of unscathed skin on his body. Even with the circulation of the indestructible heaven scroll, the rate at which he suffered injuries far exceeded the rate at which he could heal himself, which forced him to have 1 foot past the boundary of death. He quickly circulated a drop of the indestructible true fluid to recover. Very quickly, he regrew blood and flesh and had completely recovered from his previous state. After swallowing a few alchemical pills that were used for cultivation, he crushed a few hundred origin crystals. Instantly, an endless amount of origin power enveloped him. He greedily absorbed it and his cultivation gradually increased. He actually cultivated for 2 whole days and nights, and when he ended his cultivation, he had already quietly broken through to the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Very good, this sparring partner is not bad. Perhaps, after 1 more month, I not only will be able to break through to the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, but even rush up to the peak period of the 9th layer. Ling Han mumbled, unafraid how depressed and frustrated these words would make Ding Yuan Xin if he heard them. Let's go and find my sparring partner. Ling Han continued to leave messages behind, whereas Hunyo helped to leave messages as well, giggling while damaging this area of the forest with her hideous writing. Another 2 days passed, and Ding Yuan Xin had indeed caught up with them again. 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Ding Yuan Xin gasped in shock when he swept his eyes over Ling Han, his eyeballs practically popping out of his head. He was frustrated. This brat had really taken him to be a sparring partner. Not only had he formed his 8th flash of sword chi from the constant battles, now he had even broken through to the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. If he continued to battle with this brat, then wouldn't the latter be able to advance towards the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier at a terrifying rate, or even, directly break through to the spiritual pedestal tier? He was really a bit scared now. Ling Han's battle prowess was too monstrous. Perhaps, once he entered the spiritual pedestal tier, Ling Han would be able to rival him. How could he bear with the fact that he himself had cultivated an opponent that could kill him? But this brat killed his younger brother, so how could he spare him? Kill, he definitely had to kill him. At least for now, this brat's ability was far beneath his. Ding Yuan Xin did not know that Ling Han still had the Black Tower and possessed a final trump card to ensure his survival in fatal danger. Otherwise, he would definitely turn around and leave immediately. It was just like battling Rong Huanxian. He could always duck and hide himself into the 3 lives corpse caskets, and if someone in the flower blossom tier at least delivered a palm strike to this spirit tool, he could still kill himself with the strike. Do you dare to battle me to the death? Ding Yuan Xin provoked him. Is there something wrong with your head? I'm only in the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier and you are in the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, and you want me to battle you to the death? Idiot. Ling Han shook his head, yet took the initiative to attack. The demonal birth sword was drawn and sword chi shot forwards like rainbows. Just obediently be my sparring partner. Damn you. Ding Yuan Xin was unbelievably furious and stepped forward to counter Ling Han's attack. Previously, there were a few times that he had nearly managed to kill Ling Han. Thus, he was still quite confident in himself. If Ling Han was just that slightest bit unlucky, then he would definitely be able to kill the former. Unfortunately, he was always just that slightest bit away from killing Ling Han. After battling for 3 days, Ling Han once again entered the Black Tower in a near-death state. After circulating a drop of the indestructible true fluid, he directly passed out. When he woke up, he hurriedly began to cultivate. His improvement could obviously be seen. He had reached the middle period of the 8th layer, and what was even harder to come by was the fact that because he was so very near to death this time round, this gave him a deeper understanding about life and death. Life and death, they were opposites, but the end of life was death, and the end of death was life. It was an endless loop, like Taiji 2. This conformed to the Tao of the world, which was Tao begets 1, and 1 begets 2. Order and chaos, life and death, light and darkness, these opposites and cycles could be traced back to the source. However, Ling Han's current cultivation level was too low, he could only be moved, but was not able to comprehend. He allocated these stirred-up thoughts on the path of the sword, clear which path he wanted to follow. Sword Qi, Sword Ray, anyone could form these two states. But Sword Heart was different. This was a kind of higher level, which required one to possess his own path. In his last life, the path that the Sword Emperor took was the path of rulers. The moment he drew his sword, the whole world would crawl before him. The setting sun Saber Emperor had taken the path of heartlessness. He could cut down without any bit of hesitation even the source of all life, the sun. Then what kind of path should he take? Chapter 418, Path of the Strongest. It was definitely not too early to consider this question. He would very soon break through to the spiritual pedestal tier, and after he constructed his spiritual pedestal, he would be able to step into the flower blossom tier, whereupon he would then cast off his mortality. And at that time, cultivators would have really stepped onto the path to search for Tao. Therefore, there was a need for him to confirm which path he wanted to take before he reached the flower blossom tier. In his last life, in accordance with the nature of his spirit base, he chose the path of fire. He studied the might of fire and advanced on this path towards the source. This kind of path that used one of the 5 elements or lightning, such basic elements, was also the choice that the majority of cultivators would make. However, the most common, most widely chosen path was usually not the strongest choice to make. Otherwise, the Sword Emperor, the setting sun Saber Emperor, and the likes had chosen to walk completely different paths. In this lifetime, Ling Han was to pursue becoming the strongest, and naturally could not possibly walk the path that he had once taken before. Even if having walked this path once would allow him to walk smoothly and unhindered all the way to the top, he wanted to switch to a different path, a path that would allow him to become even stronger. I want to battle with all possible opponents. Whoever blocks my advance, I will defeat. I do not want to become a ruler standing at the highest position to be revered by all. This is not something I am willing to become. What I pursue is merely to be the strongest. The extreme strongest that is capable of defeating any kind of opponent. The path of the strongest. Ling Han rubbed his chin. But the problem was, did such a path exist? I have to believe in myself. Since there is this kind of belief, then there must be this kind of path. My sword will be able to cut all. It will be able to cut spirit tools, divine tools, even capable of shattering the void or cutting even gods. Ling Han's will was determined. He had confirmed it. The path he wanted was to take the path of the strongest, and his sword was the path of the strongest. At the moment, he still needed to use spirit tools, but when he formed the strongest sword within his heart, he could form the strongest sword that could cut all with a single flick of his finger. After confirming the path that he wanted to take, Ling Han's will became increasingly determined. It was as if he had obtained a new life. Streams of divine light flickered around him, making for a shocking scene. However, he soon withdrew his martial intent and returned to looking absolutely ordinary. He was closer and closer to returning to his true self. It was as if he was a peerless treasured sword that was still concealed within its sheath. Only when drawn would he release 100,000 feet of luster that could cut everything. I feel like I've touched the doorstep to the 9th flash of Sword Qi. Ling Han smiled. He had just decided on his future path, and it actually caused his spirit to brighten and allowed him to gain a great advance on the path of the sword. Now should be the time for sparring partner Ding to appear and give me enough pressure and motivation for me to polish out the 9th flash of Sword Qi. Ling Han exited the Black Tower and continued to leave provoking messages behind. This time was even faster. After merely half a day, Ding Yuan Xian had caught up. You are too arrogant. Ding Yuan Xian said through gritted teeth. He had almost killed this brat last time, but not 2 days had passed, and he had again appeared all lively and active to pick a fight with him. This was practically being without any fear of death. You're a good person. Ling Han smiled. Nyo thinks you're a good person too. Hu Nyo nodded. Ding Yuan Xian was almost driven mad with fury. These two really took him to be their sparring partner? His eyes focused on Hunyo. He did not manage to kill Ling Han after so many clashes, but this little girl should not be so difficult to kill, right? Since Ling Han had killed his younger brother, then he would also kill one of Ling Han's family and make him experience the feeling of heartache as well. Die! He leaped forwards, and charged to attack Hunyo. Your opponent is Ling Han, not Nyo. Hunyo used her movement technique and instantly disappeared like a shooting star. Her speed was so fast that Ding Yuan Xian could only watch in dumbstruck shock. Fuck, this was a little monster. Ding Yuan Xian was astonished. Ling Han was also very monstrous, but at least his monstrosity was still within an acceptable range. But that the little snip was actually so fast that even he could not catch her movements? That was too much. Ding ergo, you can't catch Nyo. Hunyo exclaimed proudly, and again began carving on a tree trunk. Ding Yuan Xian almost went mad in his utter rage. He was just wondering who it could be that made a carving of his name so hideous. So it seemed that it was this damn little girl. He turned to glare at Ling Han, his eyes filled with flames of fury. Ling Han spread his hands and said, I know that the writing is a bit ugly, but you're already so old, so even if it's a bit ugly, it's fine. Anyways, you're not going to use it to seduce any girls. Fuck. Ding Yuan Xian was mad with anger. All over his body, closely set patterns appeared that transformed into endless flames which surged to surround Ling Han. Ling Han laughed loudly and drew his sword to parry. Instantly, 8 flashes of sword chi danced unhindered. But how terrifying was the battle prowess of 15 battle stars of a spiritual pedestal tier cultivator. Immediately, he was wounded and a couple of his bones were broken from the powerful shock wave. Various burns also appeared on his body, the sight was too horrible to look at. However, his eyes were still extremely bright. The path of the strongest did not mean that he could never be beaten, but no matter how many times he was defeated, he would stand back up again, defeat his powerful foe, and continue his advance to the top. With the support of this kind of belief, the 9th flash of sword chi seemed ready to come out at his call. Ding Yuan Xian, in any case, was at the level of a prodigy, and very soon sensed the change in Ling Han. He could not help but be slightly shocked. He felt that Ling Han was like a caterpillar that had become a cocoon. In the moment that it ripped out of its cocoon, it would be able to transform into a magnificent butterfly and display its luxurious beauty. This kind of feeling made him extremely displeased. Could it be that he was really only capable of becoming a polishing stone but was not able to kill Ling Han at all? Ling Han forced him into a crisis. The battle prowess of 15 battle stars of the spiritual pedestal tier had far exceeded his limit, and the result of a straight-on clash was that he would hover over the boundary between life and death. And if it was not for the fact that he still had the thunder battle armor to protect himself and the sturdiness of the body of rock cliff and the recovery abilities of the indestructible heaven scroll, he didn't know how many times he would have already died by now. However, after endless times of surviving fatal encounters, it finally transformed into a determined comprehension. Xiao. The 9th flash of sword chi appeared at the same time, shining stunningly. Asterisk 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 asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Ding Yuan Xian cursed loudly. Ling Han had already formed 2 flashes of sword chi from battling with him. A whole 2 flashes. One had to know that even he himself only possessed 7 flashes of chi. But Ling Han, who, too, originally only had 7 flashes of chi, now possessed an additional 2 flashes. This was the comprehension that a real genius would get when trapped between life and death. Ling Han gave him a thumbs up and, weak but filled with battle spirit, said, I now pronounce you a gold medal sparring partner. Good. Applause. Hunyo began clapping her small hands from where she was standing. Ding Yuan Xian howled to the skies in his fury. This really made him too indignant. He had come to hunt Ling Han down, kill him, and snatch away the treasures the latter had. Who said that he was here to be a sparring partner? After howling enough, he calmed down and drew out a spiritual talisman. This time, he was going to kill Ling Han at all costs. Oh no, no, let's flee quickly. Ling Han recognized with a single look that the spiritual talisman was a barbarian bull spiritual talisman, which could greatly increase a cultivator's ability. He had been in tight enough straits in the beginning, and if he faced a Ding Yuan Xian that had used a barbarian bull spiritual talisman, then merely being scratched by the wind created from a strike would be able to shatter even his bones. He was here to find a sparring partner, not to go to his death. He had already broken out into a run. Hu Niu's speed was even faster. She caught up with him in a few steps, jumped onto Ling Han's back and called out happily, "Jia, Jia, Jia, run quickly. You too." Ding Yuan Xian clenched his teeth. These two actually dared to joke around in front of him. He clapped the barbarian bull's spiritual talisman onto his body. Although this was a spiritual talisman used to increase one's power, it was not the type to increase speed. However, with a power upgrade, it would still increase the user's speed slightly. He was really driven to desperation, and would spare no expense just to kill Ling Han. Chapter 419, Refining the Heavenly Luck Stone. Indeed, with the power upgrade from the Barbarian Bull spiritual talisman, though there was no surge to Ding Yuan Xian's speed, there was still a little increase. After a few steps, he soon caught up with Ling Han. "Do you think you're the only one with a spiritual talisman?" Ling Han laughed. He drew out the final swift cloud talisman and smacked it onto his body. Instantly, his speed shot up. There was a maximum limit to the effectiveness of the swift cloud talisman. For a user in the spiritual pedestal tier, the speed upgrade it offered was only about 20%. However, Ling Han was still in the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, and thus the upgrade he got still doubled his original speed. Instantly, he once again distanced himself from Ding Yuan Xian. Ding Yuan Xian could not help but grit his teeth. He drew out a trump card, and Ling Han would draw a trump card of his own to deal with it. Could he really kill this unbelievably young elite? He ceased his advance and gave the matter some consideration, then decided to give up hunting down Ling Han. Not only that, he also decided that he would leave the north region and venture into the middle state. Otherwise, if he continued to stay in the north region, perhaps he would need another 10+ years before he could manage to break through to the flower blossom tier. Leave. Anyone who could manage to make it to the prodigy role naturally had no lack of a decisive will. He immediately exited the Dark Devil Forest and headed directly to the middle state without even returning to his own clan. Ling Han naturally did not know of Ding Yuan Xian's decision. After he recovered from his injuries, he began to leave behind carved messages to provoke Ding Yuan Xian again. But even after 5 days had passed, he still did not see Ding Yuan Xian appear. Guessed that the latter might have given up his plans on hunting him down. Surprisingly decisive of him. Ling Han nodded. Ding Yuan Xian had seen the treasure that he had and could still leave so decisively. He was indeed a character. Still, without a sparring partner, he could only work hard and train on his own. Thankfully, he was already in the middle period of the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, which was already quite fast. Ling Han still continued to search for various spiritual herbs on one end, as well as cultivating on the other. A month had passed and he successfully gained 2 types of spiritual herbs that the Black Tower did not have yet. Furthermore, his cultivation level finally reached the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. If you refine the Heavenly Luck Stone at this moment and use the installation of power from the Black Tower, you will be able to maximize the effects, Small Tower hinted. Ling Han nodded agreeably and drew out a piece of the Heavenly Luck Stone. This was actually a stone bead, and when he crushed it, the inside turned out to be hollow. There was a kind of liquid inside there, the refreshing fragrance of this liquid wafted into his nose. Meanwhile, Hunyo also took out a piece and similarly sat in a cross-legged position. She was even more direct, she simply threw the piece of heavenly luck stone into her mouth and chewed on it for a bit. Ka, 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 and the rock was crushed. However, there was no odd signs at all. What, feeling as if your insides were boiling, and waves in your sea of consciousness, it was as if nothing happened at all. Ling Han knew that the heavenly luck stone's effects would only be seen when he broke through to the next tier. It would allow the cultivator's battle prowess to instantly soar up another 4 or 5 battle stars. Exactly how much the increase would depend on how sturdy the foundations for the cultivation level was. Ling Han had not eaten this thing in his last life, but he had obtained one for the sake of his smallest disciple, Jiang Yufeng. That brat only had 7 battle stars of battle prowess in the first layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, but when he broke through to the flower blossom tier, he actually still had 6 battle stars of battle prowess. The higher one's cultivation level, the more difficult it would be to challenge a stronger opponent. If it was not for the heavenly luck stone, Jiang Yufeng would only have a maximum of 3 battle stars when he broke through to the flower blossom tier, so that was proof of how awesome the heavenly luck stone was. Ling Han mused ruefully for a moment, then exited the Black Tower together with Hunyo. They began to head towards where the crimson-red chilling ice grass was growing. They hadn't walked for very long, when Ling Han felt a shiver creep up his back. He immediately stopped walking and said, "Old wretch from the Thousand Corpse sect, how long do you intend to keep following me?" Elder Nine Clouds walked out of the dense forest, a hint of confusion in his eyes. He had witnessed Ling Han enter the midst of the demonic chi with his very eyes. That was something that even he was wary of and dared not come into contact with. Yet Ling Han not only walked out of it alive, he looked extremely lively and conscious. There was absolutely no sign that he had been turned insane by the demonic chi. Exactly how many treasures did this brat possess? Elder Nine Clouds' greed blazed. He knew that Ling Han could enter the Black Tower, and so had been trying to find a chance to attack at a time when Ling Han was unguarded the most to kill him instantly. Otherwise, if he once again allowed Ling Han to duck into the Black Tower, then he could only return without achieving anything. "Young man, you have already drawn the attention of our sect. Even if I cannot do anything to you, there will be even stronger people appearing next time to take your life and snatch away your good fortune. They are also going to refine you into a corpse soldier," he forced out through clenched teeth. He had never imagined that a junior in the spiritual ocean tier would be so hard to deal with. Ling Han gave an "oh," and asked curiously, "How strong are they?" "Hee, do you want to probe me? You are really too naive, do you think that I'm a 3-year-old kid?" Elder Nine Clouds sneered. Ling Han drew out a stalk of ginseng and said, "Be good. Tell me, and I'll give you a stalk of ginseng." "Fuck." Elder Nine Clouds was driven to fuming rage. Did this brat really think of him as a dog that he would tempt him in this way? His eyes looked like they were about to spit fire. He declared, "Junior, if I do not refine you into a skinned corpse soldier, I swear that I will no longer be human." "You speak as if you are still human," Ling Han mocked. "Die." Elder Nine Clouds shouted harshly. "The only one who will die is you." A booming voice resounded and a sturdy figure emanating an oppressive aura shot out. "Fist Emperor." Elder Nine Clouds' aged eyes tensed, and he showed signs of wariness. Though the other had not broken through to the flower blossom tier for very long, he had managed to form Fist Ray already, and had even managed to battle the golden blood demonic ape to a standstill. One could not help but tremble in the face of such battle prowess. Moreover, the Thousand Corpse sect depended on the corpse soldiers they controlled, their personal battle prowess was not too impressive. Furthermore, though the other had suffered injuries after battling the golden blood demonic ape, not only had he recovered from his injuries after so many days, his ability had also advanced further as he had broken through to the second layer of the flower blossom tier. One could not help but gasp at the fact that he could still advance so fast even after he had broken through to the flower blossom tier. The Rain Emperor was a dominating figure. When his eyes turned upon Elder Nine Clouds, an endless killing intent appeared in them. Monster from the Thousand Corpse Sect, kill. He curled his hand into a fist and delivered a punch. The fist ray appeared in bright brilliance. This was a deadly weapon that had exceeded Qi. One could say that even if Ling Han managed to form 30 flashes of sword Qi, they would still be unable to stand against the weakest fist ray. This was a one-sided domination due to the difference in quality. Of course, if Ling Han managed to condense the 30 flashes of sword Qi into sword ray, then that naturally would give him a dominating advantage against a fist ray that had been condensed from 10 flashes of Qi. Although Elder Nine Clouds was in the 5th layer of the Flower Blossom tier, he was completely incapable of standing against the Rain Emperor, who had already formed Fist Ray. Within a few moves, he was already wailing. He exclaimed harshly, "Fist Emperor, I do not want to become your enemy, but if you continue to be overbearing, don't blame me for being merciless. So what if I am? Any person that I want to kill has never managed to survive." The Rain Emperor used the Son of Heaven fist technique. The fist ray moved with a brilliance, possessing terrifying might behind it. Elder Nine Clouds gave a sharp whistle, and a strange noise was immediately heard from some distance away. Very soon, an iron coffin slid over. Pang! The coffin lid shot open and a corpse soldier jumped out. It was completely silver in color, as if it was forged from silver. Level 3 silver armored corpse, Ling Han said. This corpse soldier had reached the limit for a silver armored corpse. Kaka, that's right. This is a level 3 silver armored corpse. After my various methods of tempering and refining, its ability is now close to the 9th layer of the Flower Blossom tier. Elder Nine Clouds haughtily declared. Fist Emperor, it's still possible for you to leave now fuck. He didn't finish and cursed. That was because one of the fists of the Rain Emperor had already shot forward grandly. Chapter 420, Battering Away. The Rain Emperor was still the Rain Emperor, dominating, unwavering like an emperor, and with a firm resolve. Elder Nine Clouds quickly manipulated the corpse soldier to receive the oncoming barrage of attacks. Pu, 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 pu. Endless muffled noises were heard. The Rain Emperor's punches battered the corpse soldier, but only left behind multiple very light wounds. It was indeed a level 3 silver armored corpse. This defense was comparable to the best kind of level 6 forging materials. Even Fist Ray practically left no damage. However, the Rain Emperor paid it no mind. He had the dominating character of an emperor. His punches continued to rain down, determined to batter the corpse soldier into dust. Elder Nine Clouds smirked. If they were only talking about defense, this corpse soldier was even stronger than the demonic ape, and only lacked power and destructive ability. But there was no need for him to kill the Rain Emperor. It was enough to contain him. "Young man, are you still going to flee now?" He smirked. The fact that he possessed a spirit tool that could contain living creatures was an unbelievably shocking secret. He did not believe that Ling Han would dare to use it in front of the Fist Emperor. In this manner, he had gained a chance. Ling Han smiled and said, "No." "Huh, so you are prepared to die?" Elder Nine Clouds' killing intent intensified. "No, I still have a helper." Ling Han looked towards the northwest and called out, "Brother Ao, please lend me a hand." "What?" Elder Nine Clouds followed Ling Han's lead and looked towards the direction he was looking at, but did not detect any movement. He scoffed, "Brat, don't make this unnecessarily complicated. Ho ho, a grand cultivator of the Flower Blossom tier, and yet the sensory abilities are beneath Spiritual Ocean tier 1s? Does the Thousand Corpse sect all consist of such trash?" Laughter resounded, and a person walked forth in midair. It was Ao Feng. Elder Nine Clouds instantly frowned. Why was there another cultivator of the flower blossom tier? Though this man, too, had just broken through to the flower blossom tier recently, who knew how many battle stars he possessed? Most importantly, for members of the Thousand Corpse sect, their personal battle prowess was really not that remarkable. Otherwise, one who was in the 5th layer should have absolute confidence in his victory against an opponent in the 1st layer. Grandmaster Ling is indeed an extraordinary genius. Ao Feng complimented. He, too, had witnessed Ling Han run into the midst of the demonic qi but did not suffer the slightest bit from its effects, which was something that left him shocked. Furthermore, he had been standing so far away to observe the battle just now, but Ling Han had still discovered his presence. This kind of divine sense was really terrifying. One had to understand that Ling Han had been in the heaven tier in his last life, and even if only a sliver of the divine sense of the heaven tier was left behind, if one were talking about sensory abilities, not even someone in the spiritual infant tier could catch up to him. Thank you for your praise, Brother Ao. Ling Han smiled, then began to fervently egg him on. Brother Ao, this is one of the dregs of the Thousand Corpse sect. Please help to eliminate him and remove this poisonous tumor for the world's peace. Of course. Ao Feng nodded, seeming to be very righteous. However, internally, he was extremely displeased. His original intention was to allow the Rain Emperor and Elder Nine Clouds to battle to the point that they were both severely wounded, who would then step out to calmly deal with the situation. He had never thought that Ling Han would call him out ahead of time. After all, he had only just broken through to the Flower Blossom tier, and unlike the Rain Emperor who had formed Fist Ray and was a real ruler, his battle prowess was only slightly above 2 or 3 battle stars. Against Elder Nine Clouds, it would really be difficult to decide the victor. However, the Thousand Corpse sect actually dared to set up a branch right beneath the nose of the Winter Moon sect, obviously with devious plans in mind. As an elder of the Winter Moon sect, since he had broken through to the Flower Blossom tier, he was naturally promoted from attendant to elder. Now that Ao Feng had seen a member of the Thousand Corpse sect, what logic was there in simply standing by and watching? His right hand shook and a plain-looking sword appeared, covered with an obscure pattern. Ling Han's eyes lit up. This was a level 6 spirit tool. He surmised that it had to be a family heirloom of the Ao clan. Most importantly, the forging materials to create a level 6 spirit tool were really too rare, so such a spirit tool could only be passed down the generations. One could not simply forge a new one as one liked. Elder Nine Clouds' expression became serious. His arms spread out and moved. A grayish corpse chi came to being, which slowly twined around his figure. Corpse chi and demonic chi were different methods that could achieve the same result. Demonic chi could cause one to go mad, whereas corpse chi was poisonous. Even if one in the Flower Blossom tier inhaled it for too long or was exposed to it for too long, his whole body would similarly rot, or even transform into a corpse soldier. Ao Feng waved his sword and advanced, not daring to keep any of his power in reserve. 8 flashes of sword chi danced, fully displaying the might of a ruler. Ling Han nodded. If he were being honest, Ao Feng was indeed a genius, and though Ling Dongxing was not an idiot either, the latter did not have as much talent as the former. If the two of them battled on the same cultivation level, Ling Dongxing would definitely lose. Therefore, it was necessary to have a dominating advantage in terms of cultivation level in order to allow Ling Dongxing to emerge victorious against Ao Feng. For anyone else, this might be a very difficult thing to do, but for Ling Han, it was practically a piece of cake. The spirit herbs in the Black Tower were becoming more abundant, and he had absolute confidence that he could help Ling Dongxing soar to the peak period of the spiritual pedestal tier in 3 years' time, and break through to the spiritual infant tier in 20 years' time. However, above that, his advance would slow down to the speed of a tortoise's crawl. After all, after the breakthrough of one's cultivation to the spiritual infant and the deity transformation tier, alchemical pills would only be effective in helping to accumulate origin power. Without enough comprehension of the cultivation level, no matter how many alchemical pills you were given, it would be a waste. Only genuine natural treasures had the amazing effect of assisting one in comprehending the great Tao. This was a blessing from nature. The matter of vengeance could be advanced slowly. Rescuing his mother from prison had to be the priority now. If he had to wait until Ling Dongxing possessed enough power, then his mother would have experienced too much suffering. Ling Han thought. The battle happening in front of him now was very exciting, but as someone who had once been in the heaven tier in his last life, it was not to the level that would interest him. He would not be inspired or draw inspiration from watching. Ao Feng had the help of a spirit tool and obviously had the upper hand. But the Rain Emperor was gradually falling into a disadvantage. The defense of a level 3 silver armored corpse were practically invincible, so how was he to continue playing this game? If the Rain Emperor was in the late period of the Flower Blossom tier, then he would still have a chance to win, but currently, he was too far from that. The situation was very delicate. If the corpse soldier could kill or force the Rain Emperor to retreat and then join forces with Elder Nine Clouds, then they would definitely be able to subdue Ao Feng easily. However, on the other hand, if Ao Feng managed to kill Elder Nine Clouds first, then the result would similarly be decided. So would it be the Rain Emperor who would first fail to hold on, or Elder Nine Clouds? Without a doubt, it was Elder Nine Clouds who would first beat the drums of retreat. What a joke, for someone as dominating and forceful as the Rain Emperor, the stronger the opponent, the more his battle spirit would blaze. He was the standard type that would use battle to cultivate his own battle spirit, and make use of a bloody battle to break through his own limits. How could he possibly give up on such a good opponent like a level 3 silver armored corpse? Elder Nine Clouds fled, and the Rain Emperor and Ao Feng were hot on his heels. However, after a while, the two of them returned. Naturally, they had lost track of him. After all, Elder Nine Clouds had too much of an advantage in terms of cultivation level. Running away only depended on one's speed, and the ability to battle an opponent stronger than oneself was not of much use here. Ao Feng exchanged some pleasantries with Ling Han, and also invited him to visit the Winter Moon sect as a guest. Then, he conversed with the Rain Emperor too before begging his leave and departing. It was unknown whether he was heading back to the Winter Moon sect, or continuing on his quest to find Han Lin. Grandmaster Ling, we have not seen each other for several months, and you have indeed once again made me see you in a new light. The Rain Emperor smiled. His voice was filled with ruefulness. He was certain that Ling Han would definitely become an Earth-grade alchemist, but he had not foreseen that it would happen so quickly. A young man that was still over a month away from reaching 18 years old was shockingly already an Earth-grade alchemist. Who would dare to believe such a thing? Congratulations to you for breaking through to the Flower Blossom tier and casting off your mortal shell, Rain Emperor. Ling Han smiled in return. Chapter 421, Thrashing a Dog. Though there was quite a gap between Ling Han and the Rain Emperor in terms of cultivation, Ling Han's status as an Earth-grade alchemist was enough to let the two of them stand on equal footing. Strictly speaking, an Earth-grade low-level alchemist even had slightly higher status than a Flower Blossom tier cultivator. The two of them conversed for a while. When he found out that Ling Han was going to collect the crimson-red chilling ice grass, the Rain Emperor indicated that he would like to go with Ling Han and give him a helping hand. Ling Han gladly accepted. After so many days, who knows how many people were already aiming for that spiritual herb? Though he believed that no one below spiritual infant tier could obtain it successfully, there might be cultivators in the Flower Blossom tier standing guard by the side. Who would seize it from him when they saw that he had succeeded? What was he going to do then? The secret of the Black Tower was already known to some people, and Ling Han did not want to allow it to spread even wider. Thankfully, whether it was Ronghuan Xian, Azura Demon Emperor, or Elder Nine Clouds, they all only thought that he had a spirit tool that could contain living things and did not know that it was the Black Tower, which was not as ordinary as merely being able to contain living creatures. It's now even more difficult to see through this little girl. The Rain Emperor turned to look at Hunyo. In the past, he could still somehow manage to sense that the little girl had the cultivation of the gushing spring tear, but now it was as if Hunyo had turned into mist and looked very hazy to his eyes. Hunyo giggled in response. Since Ling Han treated the Rain Emperor politely, she would give him face as well. Otherwise, who would bother? The three of them journeyed towards the location of the crimson-red chilling ice grass. It was located in the core area in the first place, so after only less than half a day, the three of them had arrived at their destination. However, they were not the only ones. 3 other people were already here. Yao Huiyu, Tong Zhiming, as well as Zhu Xuan'er. These 3 obviously wanted to obtain the crimson-red chilling ice grass as well, yet were unable to do so. Though Zhu Xuan'er's face could not be seen, it had to be filled with anxiety. Sensing the approach of Ling Han and the others, Yao Huiyu's eyes swept over them and immediately lit up brilliantly, as if his gaze had transformed into uncountable sharp blades that shone with luster. An endless battle spirit gushed out from him. He stared fixatedly at the Rain Emperor. Wang, wang, wang. The long sword at his waist actually released humming sounds, as if it wanted to exit its sheath on its own. The Rain Emperor was the same. A mighty aura spread out from him with multiple flashes of divine light surging around him, which transformed into multiple solid fists. The 2 of them had already taken a fancy to each other in the great battle with the demonic ape, but afterwards, both had suffered heavy injuries and thus naturally went off to heal their wounds, as well as digest the battle comprehension they had obtained through this battle. This was the second time they had met, and both were at their best condition. As a result, battle spirit instantly soared in both of them. Young man, you still dare to appear. Have you forgotten what Milord has said? Tong Zhiming smirked coldly at Ling Han. In the past, Yao Huiyu had declared that the next time he saw Ling Han, he was definitely going to take his life. Ling Han glanced at him, and said, "Whose dog is this that only knows how to bark crazily all day and night? If the owner's not going to take care of properly, I'm going to kill it." Yao Huiyu withdrew his attention from the Rain Emperor and said calmly to Ling Han, "If you have the ability, then you can kill if you like." Tong Zhiming sneered. He was in the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier and his battle prowess was at least 12 stars, so how could a young man in the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean compare to that? Pooh! He was instantly astonished. The 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier? Not even 3 months had passed, but how had this guy leaped from the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier all the way to the 9th? This. Previously, he had praised Yao Huiyu for being in the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier at 17 years old, and this young man in front of him now, was in no way inferior. Could it be that this would be the second coming of Yao Huiyu? However, so what if he was in the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier? There was still a gap of a complete tier between the both of them, and that was a gulf that no amount of talent would be able to compensate for. "See how I shall suppress you," he shouted loudly. Since Yao Huiyu had allowed him to act, he would naturally not have any more reservations. Ling Han smiled calmly. He was able to deal even with Ding Yuan Xian who had 15 battle stars, so what more Tong Zhiming, who only had 12. Furthermore, he had already broken through to the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier now, so his battle prowess had naturally increased by another 1 or 2 battle stars. However, he did not have the time to tangle with him. Anyways, he wanted to collect the crimson-red chilling ice grass, so he might as well just play his trump card directly. "Small tower," he called out internally. Hong, small tower instantly moved the black tower to begin the installation of power. His aura began to spike madly. The middle period, the late period, the peak period of the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, he only paused momentarily before passing over the threshold smoothly and into the spiritual pedestal tier. Then, it was the first layer, the second, the third, and soared crazily like this all the way, until his cultivation finally stalled at the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Pooh! 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 The Rain Emperor, Yao Huiyu, Zhu Xuan'er, and Tong Ji Ming all widened their eyes at the same time, completely incapable of believing what they saw happen with their very eyes. What kind of alchemical pill is this that would allow one's cultivation to increase by a whole major tier? The Rain Emperor and Zhu Xuan'er knew that Ling Han was an earth-grade alchemist, so it was not too strange for him to be capable of concocting an alchemical pill that could raise his cultivation level temporarily, but they had never heard of there being one that could grant one such a great increase. Meanwhile, Tong Ji Ming's mouth twitched. Though he had not battled with Ling Han before, merely based on Yao Huiyu's judgment about Ling Han, he knew that the latter definitely had terrifying battle prowess. And now that the both of them had equal cultivation levels, how was he supposed to continue? For the sake of your master, I shall spare your life. Ling Han waved his hand. A flash of sword chi appeared and shot forwards. Tong Ji Ming hurried to parry, but this flash of sword chi directly flung open his guarding arms. With a pu, it streamed past his neck, leaving behind a wound that instantly gushed out blood. His expression changed due to shock. This was obviously Ling Han being merciful. Otherwise, he was definitely capable of killing him in an instant. Of course, if Ling Han really made the move to kill him, Yao Huiyu would definitely not sit by and watch quietly and act to save him. Yao Huiyu looked contemplative. The current Ling Han was still much weaker than him, yet he still made his hands itch incomparably, wanting to challenge the former to a battle. However, whining against such a weakling was absolutely of no help to his formation of sword heart. Thus, he forcefully suppressed the urge. Ling Han did not give him a second glance and directly walked towards the crimson-red chilling ice grass from the fiery area. He had taken a petal of the golden flower of the stone, so need not fear the flames. Zhu Xuan'er's eyes lit up. Could it be that Ling Han was capable of collecting the crimson-red chilling ice grass? She instantly cast off her thoughts of stopping him. She was completely incapable of plucking this spiritual herb, but if it fell into Ling Han's possession, then there was at least some hope. Ling Han strode forwards. Wang, the thunder battle armor activated and multiple flashes of lightning appeared and repelled all the flames. He now had the ability of the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, which was enough to activate the defense ability of the thunder battle armor until the extent of the late period of the flower blossom tier. Yao Huiyu, that kind of monster, obviously was only in the 2nd layer of the flower blossom tier, but had at least 10 battle stars. However, battle prowess being 10 stars did not mean that defense was also 10 stars. The might of the flames would attack from all directions, so it was useless no matter how monstrous your battle prowess was unless he could destroy this whole place with a wave of his sword. Therefore, in this place, Yao Huiyu's resistance was at most comparable to a normal cultivator's in the 3rd or 4th layer of the flower blossom tier. The maximum was the 5th layer, it was definitely no higher than that. Ling Han quickly traveled half the distance, but as he continued to advance, his speed slowed down. Numerous holes appeared on the thunder battle armor, the flames entered through these holes and battered Ling Han's body. Instantly, a charred hole would appear. However, Ling Han did not even wrinkle his brow, and merely continued to walk forwards. Chapter 422, Obtaining the Spiritual Herb. In Ling Han's eyes, there was nothing more important than obtaining the crimson-red chilling ice grass on this trip. In exchange for this spiritual herb, he could even sacrifice the heavenly luck stone and the primal chaos source rock. He was suffering under enormous agony, but looked as if he felt nothing. The body of rock cliff could cut off his sense of pain, and the indestructible Heaven Scroll was fully protecting the source of his life, and added with the protection offered by the Thunder Battle Armor, this granted him the qualification to continue advancing. The Rain Emperor and Yao Huiyu both looked astonished. If they were merely talking in terms of defense, Ling Han was already superior to the both of them. However, in battle, defense was a passive ability because a powerful level of attack also belonged to defense, capable of forcing an opponent to the level that he could not fight back. So even if defense were slightly weaker, what could that impact? Their astonishment was due to that suit of battle armor that Ling Han was wearing. It was really too shocking. It was actually capable of raising the defense to the level of passive protection of a cultivator in the peak period of the Flower Blossom tier and protect Ling Han from all angles. However, for some unknown reason, they kept feeling that there was some flaw in this battle armor. That was because a hole had been pierced through the Thunder Battle Armor, which was the reason for this faint feeling of strangeness. It was still fine for lower cultivation level, but the higher the cultivation level, the more magnified this flaw would be. After all, it was not a completely whole, flawless level 10 spirit tool. Zhu Xuan'er's eyes lit up in the meantime. She hoped very much that Ling Han could successfully collect the spiritual herb. As long as he succeeded, there would still be room for discussion. Ling Han did not bother with what the others were thinking. He simply strode forwards, intending to take as much advantage of this chance to collect the crimson-red chilling ice grass as possible. Otherwise, he could only wait until after he broke through to the spiritual pedestal tier to once again make use of the installation of power from the Black Tower. But he still wanted to suppress his own cultivation level and return to completely perfect this cultivation level, and did not intend to break through so quickly. Thus, if he could make use of this installation of power to obtain the crimson-red chilling ice grass, that was naturally best. Moreover, this kind of trial was also a chance for him. 4 meters, 3 meters, 2 meters, 1 meter. The spiritual herb was within reach, but Ling Han looked to be in great pain. The might of these flames was really too terrifying. Even if he had cut off his sense of pain, he was still unable to escape it completely, because he felt as if his divine sense was also burning, making him feel extremely horrible. He definitely had to be as fast as possible. Ling Han took another step forward and finally arrived next to the spiritual herb. However, he did not pluck the spiritual herb, but rather drew the demon birth sword, intending to dig out the spiritual herb. As long as he could store it into the Black Tower alive, then who cared what kind of environmental conditions it needed? It would be able to continue growing in the Black Tower and could grow even better, as one day inside would be equal to 3 years. This was a level 7 spiritual herb, so Ling Han naturally did not intend to use it only once. Jiang, the sword scraped against the white rock underneath, instantly creating innumerable sparks of fire, and left behind a light trace. However, the tip of the sword solidified into a flash of snow white. An icy cold feeling quickly spread out from the blade of the sword, which made Ling Han shiver and feel as if all the blood in his body was about to freeze. He planned to slice this piece of rock in the middle and store it into the Black Tower as well. The tip of the sword thus naturally stabbed into the icy ground, which caused the attack of an icy air. And what was even stranger was that though the other half of the sword's blade was in the fiery ground, it did not cancel out the cold air, but rather cooperated with it extremely well. After a surge of cold air, then came a surge of burning heat, making Ling Han's blood that had been frozen just moments ago boil again in an instant. It was such agony that he immediately spat out blood. Fuck, this was the genuine feeling of experiencing ice and fire at the same time. Ling Han gritted his teeth, but had no intention to stop at all. Ding, 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 he used the demon birth sword like it was a chopper and continuously sliced away at the rock. Thankfully, it was a level 10 spirit tool. If the grade was slightly lower and it was used to slice away at this kind of place where ice and fire wove together, the durability of the weapon would definitely be decreased. Within a few moments, it'd probably be shattered. However, even so, because Ling Han's ability was at solid disadvantage, he did not slice very quickly. Meanwhile, his left arm, left leg, and right leg were beginning to be charred, and the fragrance of barbecued meat gradually wafted out. His right arm was still fine because he focused the indestructible heaven scroll to heal it and gave up on the other, unimportant, parts. Hunyo was very anxious and jumped around in panic. However, she was still filled with wariness for this ice and fire area, and did not dare to rush in thoughtlessly. Moreover, Ling Han was still standing and waving his sword, so things had not advanced to the worst extent. If Ling Han fell down, she would definitely scramble over and try her best to drag Ling Han out. When his two legs were about to be burnt off, Ling Han used the indestructible true fluid without hesitation. He had a total of 3 drops, which would allow him to recover completely for 3 times. Wang, a majestic essence of life flowed within his body. Instantly, all his injuries were healed. Ding, 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 Ling Han was chopping more energetically. But when the essence of the indestructible true fluid was completely expended, his arm and legs began to once again show signs of being charred. Meanwhile, Yao Huiyu and the others were watching dumbfounded. He was actually able to recover instantly from such serious injuries. How terrifying was that kind of divine pill that possessed such recovery abilities? If they managed to get one, then wouldn't that mean that they would be granted an extra life? Yao Huiyu was not yet aware of Ling Han's identity, but Zhu Xuan'er and the Rain Emperor both nodded internally. He was really worthy of being an Earth-grade alchemist. He was awesome. If this was known to Lu Jitong and the other Earth-grade alchemists, they would definitely break out into tears. How could there possibly be such an awesome Earth-grade alchemical pill in this world? Only the legendary sacred medicine, the 9 Immortals pill, possessed such effects, but that was a heaven-grade mid-level alchemical pill, and there was no longer anyone who could concoct it in this world. Ling Han sliced and sliced. Ding, 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 the sounds of impact did not stop, which made Yao Huiyu and the others all confused. Why did he not simply pull out the spiritual herb and leave, but chopped the rock so determinately instead? Could it be that he actually wanted to get a live one and take it back so that he could continue to grow it? Did he actually have a suitable environment for it? They had really guessed correctly. However, there was absolutely no way that they would actually guess that there existed a priceless treasure like the Black Tower. Ling Han quickly used the second drop of indestructible true fluid. However, this time, it was obvious that his recovery speed had slowed down, and the medicinal effects had also disappeared faster. Even such a godly item would make one slowly immune to it. True, a drop of indestructible true fluid was practically capable of reviving a dead person, and furthermore, healed his injuries completely. If there was not any kind of limits to it, then it would really be illogical. When the effects of the second drop of indestructible true fluid completely vanished, Ling Han had already chopped off 2/3 of the white rock. He could not help but sigh. If he could grasp Sword Ray at this time and used 10,000 techniques returned to 1, at the same time, perhaps one strike would be enough to completely chop this piece of rock in 2. There was no other way at this point, so he could only keep circulating the 4 Seasons sword technique. If he used the mysterious 3,000, then Yao Huiyu would definitely be able to tell. At that time, then it was even possible that the old monsters of the Heaven Sword sect would move out and interrogate him forcefully to find out where he had learnt this sword technique from. By then, even if he could invent some kind of reason, how could the Heaven Sword sect spare an outsider that had learnt a sword technique of their sect? Thus, before he had adequate power, Ling Han did not want to let the Heaven Sword sect know that he had learnt the 3 styles of black origin. I chop. Chop, 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 chop. Only after a while was Ling Han forced to use the last drop of indestructible true fluid, and by this time, the white rock was close to being chopped off completely. Ling Han seemed to have gone mad. There was no longer any indestructible true fluid to extend his life for him, so he had to chop the white rock completely before he collapsed. Chapter 423, Battling Yao Huiyu. Charred skin once again appeared on Ling Han's arms and legs, but there was only a tiny sliver of the white rock left. He gave a loud yell and made a vast slash with his sword. Peng, the rock finally broke. He stretched out a hand and pressed down on it, whilst communicating with the Black Tower. Xiao, he had stored both the broken rock along with the scarlet rainbow frost ice grass inside the Black Tower. Retreat. He hurriedly retreated, and in a few steps, exited the zone of flames. He quickly drew out multiple alchemical pills which he swallowed down like crazy. In the meantime, he continuously circulated the indestructible heaven scroll to heal his injuries. "You're already cooked," Hunyo said with a hint of heartache in her voice as she raced over, but when she gave a few sniffs with her little nose, her saliva dripped out of her mouth. "Smells nice." The corner of Ling Han's mouth twitched. Was this little girl going to pounce on him and take a bite? "Grandmaster Ling, please give the crimson-red chilling ice grass to me. No matter how many origin crystals, I will pay you for it." Xuan'er immediately exclaimed. "Grandmaster Ling?" Yao Huiyu wore a thoughtful smile. "He's an alchemist." "Earth-grade low-level alchemist," the Rain Emperor answered. This time, Yao Huiyu finally looked surprised. He had estimated that Ling Han was at most a black-grade mid-level alchemist, or high-level at best, but he had never imagined that Ling Han was actually an earth-grade alchemist. Don't think lesser of an earth-grade low-level alchemist. Once one passed to earth-grade, it was like a cultivator had passed into the flower blossom tier. It was a completely different plane. A young man who had yet to reach 18 years old was actually an earth-grade low-level alchemist. Yao Huiyu's talent in martial arts was indeed worthy of receiving a thumbs up from mostly everyone in this world, but if his talent was compared to Ling Han's accomplishments in alchemy, Ling Han was in no way inferior, or might have even exceeded him drastically. That was because when he was at Ling Han's age, he was only in the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. That was only comparable to being a black-grade mid-level alchemist. But what about Ling Han? In martial arts, he had reached the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier as well. He was a really terrifying young man. No wonder his heart would throb with the feeling that Ling Han would be one of his greatest rivals in the future. Yet Ling Han did not pay them any attention. He merely continued to circulate the indestructible heaven scroll. The effects of the alchemical pills were also continuously taking effect, allowing his body to recover at a rapid rate. As long as he was not constantly being attacked by the flames, the indestructible heaven scroll could display its effects to the fullest. After about 10+ minutes, he stood back up. Though his injuries had not recovered completely, most of his injuries had. "Ling Han, hand over the crimson-red chilling ice grass to Xuan'er and I can spare your life," Yao Huiyu said calmly. He had said before that the next time he saw Ling Han, he would take the latter's life. The Rain Emperor immediately humphed and interrupted, "I was just thinking to have a battle with you." He decisively accepted the challenge to battle in Ling Han's stead. Yet Ling Han smiled and said, "Rain Emperor, just leave this battle to me." There was still half an hour left of the installation of power from the Black Tower, so how could it be wasted? "Ha ha ha." Yao Huiyu laughed loudly, but as he laughed, he kept shaking his head. "Though I have a high opinion of your potential, the current you is not acceptable. You are not yet qualified to battle me. You'd only find out after a battle." Ling Han waved the demon birth sword. Faint patterns appeared, and a terrifying pressure emanated from the sword. This kind of pressure had strong suppressive effects on any cultivator below the flower blossom tier, but its effects were limited against those upwards. After all, from that cultivation tier onwards, the cultivator had stepped beyond the limits of mortality. Yao Huiyu humphed and said, "I was originally very expectant of the day that you will come to challenge me in the future, but if you insist to seek your own death, I do not mind granting your wish either." He was someone who had no fear of killing in the first place. He did not have the habit of treasuring talent, either. It was only a spur-of-the-moment kind of thing for him to make a 2-year promise with Ling Han, so naturally, he did not mind killing Ling Han before then. Mr. Yao, Grandmaster Ling is an Earth-grade alchemist. Zhu Xuan'er reminded coldly. Though she very much wanted the crimson-red chilling ice grass, she had no intention to take Ling Han's life for it. Moreover, the two of them were still supposed to head to the Middle State to battle together, and were allies. How could she possibly sit by and watch? Yao Huiyu smirked. Others might fear the Alchemist Society, but how could he? The internal workings of age-old sects like the Heaven Sword sect were far stronger than anyone dared to imagine. Even the Alchemist Society would not be willing to trifle with them easily. So what if he killed Ling Han? Could it be that the Alchemist Society would dare to come to Heaven Sword sect to apprehend him? If you can block 3 sword strikes from me, I will spare you, he said darkly. Don't think that his heart had softened. It was an absolutely one-sided domination for one in the Flower Blossom tier against an opponent in the Spiritual Pedestal tier. Wouldn't 3 moves be enough to kill? Ling Han raised the Demon Birth sword levelly and answered calmly, "You won't be able to kill me." These were honest words. Currently, he was, at any rate, in the 9th layer of the Spiritual Pedestal tier, and at least before the installation of power from the Black Tower ended, he would be able to activate the peak period of the Flower Blossom tier-level defense from the Thunder Battle Armor. As for when the installation of power from the Black Tower ended? Naturally, he would then beckon over the Rain Emperor to take his place. He was definitely not a man who was willing to die for useless pride. First strike. Yao Huiyu acted. He casually waved his finger, merely forming 5 flashes of sword chi. But who was he? Not only was he in the Flower Blossom tier, he had also proclaimed himself as the 2nd strongest swordsman in the world. Though that was a bit of an exaggeration, his power in the Flower Blossom tier was still unbelievably strong. It was as if these 5 flashes of sword chi were furious dragons that could easily kill a cultivator in the 9th layer of the spiritual tier over 100 times. In the first place, the gap between the Spiritual Pedestal and the Flower Blossom tier was like the gap between heaven and earth, what more when it was the kind of monster that Yao Huiyu was. Ling Han was unafraid and waved his sword to parry. Pu, 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 pu. He could not slice apart Yao Huiyu's sword chi, but the Thunder Battle Armor managed to easily block all 5 flashes. Ling Han wasn't even forced back from the impact. Interesting. Yao Huiyu smiled. Previously, he had already seen the defensive ability that the Thunder Battle Armor displayed against flames, but being able to resist flames and being able to defend against a powerful attack were 2 completely different things. For example, an earthen wall could resist fire, but facing a powerful attack, it would definitely be broken. After this one strike, Yao Huiyu's thought that it was a fluke had disappeared. The Thunder Battle Armor could not only defend against fire and ice attacks, but was also effective against powerful attacks. He had to get serious. Yao Huiyu drew his sword, his expression serious. For someone as proud as he, since he had declared that he would strike 3 times, he was definitely not going to strike a 4th time. Otherwise, that would ruin the core of his art of the sword, and he could never possibly form sword heart in this lifetime. He once again waved his hand. Xiao, 9 flashes of sword chi appeared simultaneously, and charged towards Ling Han. Pang! These flashes of sword chi were once again perfectly dispersed by the Thunder Battle Armor. How could normal attacks be effective against defense at the level of the peak period of the Flower Blossom tier? Yao Huiyu's expression increased in seriousness. He did not mean to take Ling Han seriously at all, but the might of the latter's battle armor had exceeded his expectations. He had to use his best move, or he would really be unable to kill this young opponent. He took in a deep breath and his treasured sword trembled slightly. Endless sword chi was exuded from all over his body, as if the wielder had also transformed into a sword. His body was the sword, his consciousness was the sword, all was the sword. Ling Han was greatly moved. In his last life, he had naturally not seen the Sword Emperor attack at full strength, and Yao Huiyu's trying his best now instantly gave him inspiration. So the path of the sword could be walked in this way too. He wanted to walk the path of the strongest, so naturally, he had to absorb the strongest points of various paths. Mysterious 3000, slashing all three realms. Yao Huiyu struck. Xiao, xiao, xiao. A total of 1,200 flashes of light actually shone with luster from the strike. Ling Han smiled. It was indeed the mysterious 3000, he had made the right bet. Chapter 424, A Narrow Victory. 1,200 sword flashes. This meant that Yao Huiyu had shot out 11 flashes of sword chi. That was how the total number of sword flashes reached the high point of 1,200. This was an extremely terrifying attack. A cultivator in the flower blossom tier was capable of shooting out 1,200 sword flashes, and every flash was equivalent to Yao Huiyu's full power attack. If these sword flashes crashed onto the thunder battle armor, they were perfectly capable of crushing its flower blossom tier level defense. They were too concentrated and too powerful. Ling Han was also slightly surprised. He had foreseen that when the first two strikes of Yao Huiyu produced no effect, he would definitely use the mysterious 3000 in the third strike. The latter's pride and self-esteem would not allow the words he had declared to fall empty. However, he had never thought that Yao Huiyu had indeed hidden his real ability. He had actually formed as many as 11 flashes of sword chi. He was indeed a very ambitious man. He had already formed 11 flashes of sword chi, yet did not choose to consolidate them into sword ray. Was he planning to form 29 flashes then? The Rain Emperor was also greatly stirred. He had formed fist ray only after he had formed 10 flashes of chi, but he had never thought that 10 flashes was not the limit at all. There was nothing to be done about that. Due to the limits of the power structure, there was no way that the Rain Emperor's understanding and knowledge about martial arts could compare with a disciple of Heaven's Sword sect. This had nothing to do with personal talent, but was rather due to the gap between their respective legacies. Ling Han moved and used the shadow wind motion, and actually managed to weave around the 1,200 sword flashes. Extremely coincidentally and very amazingly, he avoided one sword flash after another, heading towards Yao Huiyu in attack. That was too inconceivable. The Rain Emperor and Zhu Xuan'er could not help but gape. That was definitely Yao Huiyu's strongest attack. If it was them, even if Zhu Xuan'er broke through to the flower blossom tier, she would only be able to stay on the defense against such an attack. Otherwise, she could only choose to retreat early on to avoid facing such power directly. But soon after, they immediately shook their heads internally. That was 1,200 sword flashes. It was absolutely impossible to defend against. Unless they possessed an overwhelming advantage in cultivation level, that would be the only way they could parry what was equivalent to the fierce attack of 1,200 Tao Huiyu. The only option was to retreat and dodge. This was the conclusion that the two of them had reached, yet Ling Han did the exact opposite. He actually went straight up against the 1,200 sword flashes and charged towards Yao Huiyu to attack. But it seemed as if he could really succeed. He had already managed to dodge over 700 sword flashes. How could this scene not strike the Rain Emperor and Zhu Xuan'er dumb? Meanwhile, Tong Ji-ming was gritting his teeth as well, yet he felt as if the pain caused by the injury on his neck had increased slightly. Only Hu Niu kept clapping her hands, calling out in praise. 800, 900, 1,000, 1,100, 1,200. Ling Han actually managed to pass all 1,200 sword flashes and arrived in front of Yao Huiyu. His sword streaked past, and he used the 4 seasons sword technique, spring, summer, autumn and winter cycled. Pang! Yao Huiyu was struck and his figure was instantly flung backwards from the impact. However, multiple patterns lit up on his body, and when he touched the ground, there was only a very shallow wound on the left side of his face. Blood was seeping out, but it was as if it was mercury. It dripped slowly and exuded a silvery white light. Ling Han withdrew his sword. He managed to turn tables around in the final attack because he, too, had cultivated the mysterious 3000. Moreover, he had formed 9 flashes of sword chi himself, which was only 2 flashes of sword chi less than his opponent. As a result, he naturally knew how these sword flashes circulated. Though the additional 200 flashes did give him some trouble. However, he did have the divine sense of the heaven tier after all, and his opponent was only in the flower blossom tier, so the additional 200 sword flashes were not too much of a problem. This was what led to a miracle. A cultivator of the 9th layer of spiritual pedestal tier overcame the strongest killing move of his flower blossom tier opponent and managed to land his own attack. Even if he had only left behind a very tiny wound on Yao Huiyu's face, which was completely superficial. A hush fell all around them. The Rain Emperor was astonished, Zhu Xuan'er's beautiful eyes shone brightly, whereas Tong Ji Ming trembled. Only Hu Niu was clapping her hands wildly and broke the silence with her applause. Yao Huiyu's expression changed repeatedly, but finally returned to impassiveness. He exuded an absolutely relaxed air and even smiled. He said, "Not bad, not bad. In my whole life, this is the first time that I have been wounded by someone who is 10 years younger than me. I've said before that I would only strike 3 times. Ling Han, there are still 20 months. Within these 20 months, even if I meet you once again, I will pretend that I have not seen you. However, 20 months later, no matter where you're hiding, I will find you and kill you. I will step on your corpse and break through to the 2nd level of my path of the sword." He had completely recovered his forceful manner and brimmed with confidence. He turned to Zhu Xuan'er and said, "Xuan'er, I'm sorry. I was not able to help you collect the spiritual herb, but please don't worry. I will immediately return to the middle state and definitely help you get spiritual herb." After saying so, he nodded at Tong Ji Ming, and the two of them turned around and left. Ling Han's eyes stayed on Yao Huiyu's figure. The next time they met, he would definitely not take advantage of the fact that he had an understanding of mysterious 3000, instead, he would use real battle prowess to defeat this second coming of the Sword Emperor. Sword Emperor, it would be good if you had managed to enter the Reel of Gods. I shall definitely seek you out in the future for a good battle. Ling Han's confidence soared. He was certain that he would be able to break through to the Flower Blossom tier in 2 years' time. Grandmaster Ling, how much crimson red chilling ice grass do you need to use to concoct your alchemical pill? Please leave some for Xuan'er. Zhu Xuan'er bowed to Ling Han. Whether it was because of his identity as an Earth-grade alchemist or because of the battle prowess he currently possessed, she dared not use forceful means. Furthermore, she was most impressed by a genius of martial arts. Ling Han, with his cultivation of the 9th layer of spiritual ocean tier, though he had temporarily raised his cultivation to the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, was capable of wounding an elite cultivator of the flower blossom tier, especially when it was the kind of monster that Yao Huiyu was. It naturally filled her with an endless respect for him. Her beautiful eyes blazed, extremely enchanting. Meanwhile, the Rain Emperor smiled slightly and said, "Ling Han, I will still stay for some time in this dark devil forest, and when I reach the 9th layer of flower blossom tier, I will enter the other regions to travel. Therefore, if you encounter any trouble during this time, you can come here and look for me." "Many thanks, Rain Emperor." Ling Han raised his clasped hands in thanks. There was a protective screen that separated all 4 great regions and the middle state. A weaker person could freely pass through, but the higher one's cultivation, the harder it would be to pass through this barrier. For example, it was possible for a cultivator in the spiritual infant tier to pass through, but their cultivation would be greatly decreased. Thus, if one wanted to travel to the various regions and the middle state, the flower blossom tier was the best cultivation level for it. One would still be strong enough to ensure his own safety yet would not be weakened in the process of passing through the barrier. The Rain Emperor looked over Ling Han and Zhu Xuan'er a few times, laughed loudly, and leaped through the air and left. Zhu Xuan'er's face reddened from the way he was looking at them. Thankfully, she had a white veil to cover her face, so no one could see how she currently resembled a peach. "Grandmaster Ling," she said to Ling Han shyly, her beautiful eyes clear and like honey, enough to make one's heart drunk with the sweetness. Ling Han thought for a moment, then said, "1 month later, bring enough origin crystals or other ingredients. Formation techniques would be all right as well. I can sell the crimson red chilling ice grass to you." If it was 1 month, there should be quite a few stalks of crimson red chilling ice grass in the Black Tower, so it would be fine to sell off 1 stalk. "Really?" Zhu Xuan'er asked, extremely excited. Ling Han revealed an impatient expression and countered, "I am an earth-grade alchemist, do you think I would lie to a little girl like you?" Instantly, the corner of Zhu Xuan'er's mouth twitched, and she almost charged up to him to stab him with her sword. Chapter 425, Return to Extreme Yang City. Zhu Xuan'er, ranked 13th in the prodigy roll of the North region. In the ranking tournament that would come about a month later, it was a sure thing for her to be ranked among the top 3. It was not an impossible thing for her to be ranked first even. Furthermore, she was the greatest beauty of the North region. Without even showing her whole face, she was capable of making the excellent disciples of Heaven's Sword sect be at her beck and call, trying their best to gain her favor. How enchanting was she to be able to do that? Yet someone actually ignored her charms and actually rebuked her as a little girl. Zhu Xuan'er was really very displeased. If Ling Han was an old man in his 50s or 60s, she would have nothing to say. But it was obvious that this guy was 3 or 4 years younger than herself, yet acted all aged and experienced. How could she not explode with anger? Most importantly, Ling Han's expression seemed to be so natural. He did not look at all like he was playing a cat-and-mouse game with her. This was practically like stabbing a few dozen times directly into Zhu Xuan'er's heart that had always been so confident. At this moment, she really felt a strong impulse to pull off her veil. She was sure that once Ling Han saw her magnificent beauty, he, too, would fall captive to her charms. However, firstly, she had never wanted to make use of her beauty, and secondly, she was more fearful that Ling Han would fall for her and use the crimson red chilling ice grass, or his status as an earth-grade alchemist, to force her to his will. Thus, she gritted her teeth and suppressed this kind of impulsive urge. "Grandmaster Ling, you look to be only 17 or 18 years old. If Xuan'er is a little girl, then what are you?" she countered. "Silly girl, whether one is mature or not is decided by one's mental age, not by the way one looks. I know already just by listening to you that you're really a silly girl." Ling Han shrugged, turned and left. Meanwhile, Hunyou made a face at Zhu Xuan'er, then caught up to Ling Han. Tugging on the corner of Ling Han's shirt, she giggled in laughter. "Damn! Damn! Damn!" Zhu Xuan'er felt like she was about to go crazy. How could there be such a man that would drive one to such anger? He was really too irritating, wasn't he? He really made one want to throw something at him, right? Ling Han was very satisfied. This trip to the Dark Devil Forest was practically perfect. Not only did he reap massive benefits from this journey, he had also managed to conjure a demon emperor and solve a huge problem. He had also met the Rain Emperor again. This dominating emperor had already set out on his path of a ruler, and his future achievements were boundless. He brought Hunyou with him back to Extreme Yang City. If Yinlan already managed to obtain the 9-leaf black Ganoderma for him, he would be able to concoct the Restore Spirit pill. Zhu Xuan'er actually caught up with them and traveled alongside Ling Han. This made Hunyo very displeased. She felt that this woman that liked to move her behind as she walked was really too annoying. Why did she keep trying to seduce her Ling Han? Ling Han had already transplanted the crimson-red chilling ice grass. Actually, this stalk of spiritual herb had yet to reach full maturity, but after growing in the Black Tower for over a dozen days, it should be mature enough. Thus, when Ling Han returned to Extreme Yang City, this stalk of spiritual herb was fully grown, but bore only 3 pieces of fruit. Yet the main stem very rapidly wilted, as if it had transferred all its life into these 3 pieces of fruit. The fruit could not be used. The value of the crimson-red chilling ice grass lay in its stem. However, these 3 pieces of fruit meant that over a month later, Ling Han would be able to gain 3 stalks of 100-year-old crimson-red chilling ice grass. At that time, he would use one and sell another to Xuan'er. He would leave the last to continue bearing fruit, and in the future, he would no longer be short of this spiritual herb. He returned to the inn, yet found out that Lu Yutong and the others had long moved out. However, they had left being an address for Ling Han with a waiter. Naturally, it was because Lu Yutong and Li Si-chan had decided, and finally found a new home for them. When they reached Extreme Yang City, Xuan'er floated away, whereas Ling Han went to his new home. It was located in the eastern part of the city. From the outside, it looked very ordinary, but there was actually a sizable lake inside. Willow trees hung over the lake, making for a very pleasant scenery. Furthermore, there were platforms and towers, water pavilions and stone bridges, making one feel as if one had found a spot of calm in chaos. They had actually even hired guards at the doorway. They halted Ling Han's advance. This made Hunyo display her ferocious true nature, and she almost bit them. Thankfully, Zhu Wujiao just happened to come out and hurriedly welcomed Ling Han into the residence. He also informed the guards that this was the real owner of the Ling residence. They had also hired some servants to work in the manor. After all, the manor was extremely large, and Lu Yutong and the others had other matters they needed to do, primarily cultivation and pill concoction, so how would they have time to do trivial tasks? Soon, Lu Yutong and the others came out to receive him. Ling Han roughly grasped the current state of events. Whether it was Forget Not or Alchemist King Pavilion, due to Lu Jitong's care, naturally no one dared to make any designs on them. However, because Ling Han had left for too long, the ingredients at Forget Not were almost finished. From last month onwards, they had even used the method of selling those dishes that needed these ingredients and limited the amount. Otherwise, they would have had no more ingredients to sell by now. It was the same for the Alchemist King Pavilion. The higher-grade alchemical pills that Ling Han had concocted were practically sold out, and although Li Si-chan had considerable talent in alchemy, she was still a very far way off from the Alchemy Emperor. Thankfully, Ling Han finally returned. Naturally, business matters had to be dealt with as soon as possible. Ling Han withdrew a large amount of fresh fruits and vegetables as well as some livestock from the Black Tower and told Zhu Wujiao to deliver them to Forget Not. As for alchemical pills, when he had the time, he would enter into the Black Tower to concoct them. After all, they needed time to be concocted, and could not just be withdrawn like those food ingredients. When it was time for lunch, Gong Letian came without an invitation. He was already addicted to the good stuff sold in Forget Not, yet after they limited the supply of dishes, he could only eat one excellent dish with each meal. How could his mouth, which had grown picky, tolerate this? Thus, he would come every day to join them for a meal because Lu Yutong and the others had long become picky as well and had to have dishes made with the food ingredients from the Black Tower for every meal. When he saw that Ling Han had returned, this guy immediately pounced on him and wailed, "Brother, you have finally come back. I'm almost about to die from waiting for your meat." Ling Han could not help but wear a dark expression. Did this guy know how to talk? He wanted to eat his flesh. Ling Han had returned today, so everyone naturally needed to not continue conserving their supplies. Multiple kinds of gourmet dishes were served, they fiercely ate their meal, causing all of their stomachs to become rounded from the feast. After Gong Letian left, Ling Han gathered all of them around him. "This is the heavenly luck stone," Ling Han said, and explained the effects as well. This made everyone astonished. If they refined this small rock, then when they broke through to the next tier in future, they would gain an additional 4 or 5 battle stars worth of battle prowess? That was really too shocking. How could such a priceless treasure exist in this world? They were people of Rain country, and due to their limited knowledge, they naturally could not have heard of such a treasure. Everyone was extremely excited. Even elite cultivators of the flower blossom and spiritual infant tier would fight over such a treasure so that they could help their own juniors raise their ability, but Ling Han actually managed to get as many as 9 pieces of such a rock. It was really astonishing. They were filled with gratitude and each swallowed a piece of heavenly luck stone. Once they broke through to the next major tier, their battle prowess would spike up a long way. This would be proven earliest through Lu Yutong and Zhu Wujiu, because they were both already on the 9th layer of the Gushing Spring tier. They had already strengthened their cultivation foundations close to perfection and were ready to break through. Ken Yi would be much slower. He had just broken through to the 2nd layer of the spiritual ocean tier and still had a very long way to go until the spiritual pedestal tier. Guang Yuan was worse off. Because he was cultivating anew, he was indeed advancing at a faster rate than Ken Yi. However, because his cultivation had regressed, even if he once again broke through to the spiritual pedestal tier, he would still only be recovering his original ability and not breaking through. As a result, the benefits offered by the heavenly luck stone would only be visible when he broke through to the flower blossom tier. On the other side, Li Si-chan was unwilling to swallow the heavenly luck stone no matter what. To her, this was an extreme waste. She only needed the advancement of her cultivation level, and it would be enough for her to be able to concoct alchemical pills. For her, very powerful battle prowess was really not of much use. Chapter 426, Tiandu Thunderstar Array. Ling Han did not coerce her either. Having Li Si-chan refine the heavenly luck stone was indeed a bit of a waste. Since she did not need it, then they'd just put it aside for now. Anyways, no matter when, this kind of priceless treasure would be able to fetch an astronomical price. He headed to the Spirit Treasures Pavilion and asked if there was any news about the 9-leaf black Ganoderma. The result of his queries brought him much unexpected joy. Yin Hong had already gotten some news about the 9-leaf black Ganoderma, and would be able to obtain it in another 1 or 2 months' time. There was nothing to be done about that. A level 7 spiritual herb was extremely valuable, and Yin Hong was only the beloved daughter of the pavilion master of the North Region branch of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion, so she had limited means at her disposal. Most importantly, being the pavilion master of a branch of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion did not mean one had absolute authority. After all, the Spirit Treasures Pavilion was a very, very large party. It was just another 1 or 2 months' wait. Ling Han was still willing to wait. Moreover, about a month later, the prodigy role of the North Region would once again open up, and though Ling Han was not interested to participate, he might as well see how strong the prodigies of this era were. Right, do you still have any other array techniques? I can take out some cultivation or martial arts techniques to exchange for them, Ling Han said. Yin Hong rolled her eyes and replied, "Don't talk to me in the tone that you use to speak with kids. Just take a look at the goods." Ling Han waved his right hand, and instantly, 10 books with martial arts techniques appeared on the table, every one of them earth grade. Yin Hong flipped through them and could not help but look shocked. She asked, "Where did you steal so many martial arts techniques from?" "Don't you worry about that. Are you willing to trade?" Ling Han said, smiling. Yin Hong could not help but be moved, but said, "Didn't I give you a little Tianyuan spirit snake array previously?" "I already learnt that," Ling Han said very casually. "Pooh." Yin Hong instantly spat out a mouthful of tea. already learnt? What kind of joke was he playing here? That was a level 4 array technique, and you already learnt it in a few months' time? One had to understand that array techniques could not be learnt overnight. One had to first learn level 1 array patterns, followed by level 2, level 3, then level 4. Ordinarily, 1 or 2 months would be enough to learn level 1 array patterns, but level 2 would at least need 1 or 2 years, level 3 would require 4 to 5 years, and level 4 would at least need over 10 years to be learnt successfully. It would be easy in the beginning, but the further one advanced, the slower the rate of improvement. Thus, array techniques were only support techniques, and no one would actually only cultivate array techniques. Yin Hong could also be considered a genius of array techniques, yet even she had spent 3 whole months to fully grasp the little Tianyuan spirit snake array, and this was still based on the fact that she had already grasped a large amount of level 4 array patterns. "You're bluffing." She did not believe him. Ling Han smiled slightly and spread out his right hand. 7 golden patterned rods appeared, and the little Tianyuan spirit snake array appeared in his consciousness. Instantly, the power of nature gushed forth, and a white snake suddenly appeared. "What?" Yin Hong stood up abruptly, her beautiful eyes wide. You are practically a monster. Hey, even if we know each other well, I will still get angry if you insult me like that, Ling Han said, smiling. Yin Hong still looked dumbfounded and said, "I thought that I was a genius of array techniques, but when compared with you, I feel like I'm an idiot." "True, I am a genius." Ling Han nodded. Yin Hong could not help but sigh. "Can't you be a little modest? This is the truth. If I act modest, that would be being pretentious." "Acting pretentious is something that only bastards would do," Ling Han said in mock seriousness. Yin Hong instantly broke out in laughter, and as she laughed, her beautiful body shook with her peals of laughter, without worrying if she would ignite Ling Han with her voluptuous movements or that he would be overcome by lust and push her down. After a while, she said seriously, "With your level in array techniques, perhaps you may be even more impressive than I am a year later, and can take my place as the main force in the array techniques competition. Then you'd have to increase my pay." Ling Han said seriously. Yin Hong rolled her lovely eyes at him and said, "Just a few words of praise and you're over the moon already? However, be it for array technique, alchemy, or martial arts, every region can send 3 people, and the one who has achieved the best result will be used in the judgment. The higher your achievements in array techniques, the higher the possibility of us getting higher marks in array techniques. All right, I'll trade with you." She drew out an ancient book and placed it in front of Ling Han. Tiandu Thunder Star Array. Ling Han cast a glance over it. These words were written on the book's cover. "A level 5 array technique," Yin Hong declared, her expression somber. "However, this is the highest level of array technique that I can obtain. In the case of level 6 array techniques, I am not yet qualified to learn. But even if I have, I could not possibly teach you either. There are very strict rules about that." Yet Ling Han was pleased. The might of a level 5 array technique was equivalent to the spiritual pedestal tier, and he was only a hair's breadth away from breaking through to the spiritual pedestal tier. Level 4 array techniques, on the other hand, were not of much help, as very soon, they would not be useful to him anymore. Deal. He grabbed the book of array techniques and left. Yin Hong could not help but grit her teeth. She was, in any case, a great beauty, and was naturally charming in disposition. Was this brat blind? The reason why Ling Han was able to advance so fast on the path of array techniques naturally was related to the fact that he had a sliver of the divine sense left behind from the heaven tier. Furthermore, he had entered into various ancient historical sites in his last life, so had studied much about array techniques. Thus, he had not begun from absolute zero. He flipped through the book. This Tiandu Thunder Star Array could induce the attack of lightning, and it was divided into 2 versions. One version was the main array, which needed one to lay out 136 array stones. Even a level 5 array master was not able to control it freely, and could only set it up as a dead array. A so-called dead array was similar to the Mountain Protection Great Array. It could only be set up in a certain location, and would only be activated when an intruder entered into the bounds of the array. The advantage was that it was completely automatic and possessed great force. There were also a lot of disadvantages, however. Firstly, it could not be moved, so once it was set up somewhere, it would stay there. Secondly, it could not differentiate between enemies and friends, so one wrong step, and he could still activate the array to attack him. I could set up one here. It could block any enemies at the level of the spiritual pedestal tier, Ling Han mumbled. However, there were 136 array stones needed. How many materials would that need? He was definitely unable to set it up for the time being. There was another version which was a supplementary array. The power of this array was much smaller, but it only needed 36 array stones. It could be considered as the compact version of the main array. The advantage of this array was that it could be actively controlled completely by the array master and he could command it to attack as he desired, just like the little Tianyuan spirit snake array. Looks like I'm going to have to spend a lot. Thankfully, 3 bone-forming pills had been auctioned off for 7,000 2-star origin crystals, as well as a dozen over 1,000 1-star origin crystals, which would be enough to buy them. Ling Han huffed out a breath of air. Looking at things, array techniques were also extremely costly, and were not that much better than alchemy. However, though array masters could also earn money by helping another to set up a great array, once the array was set up, it could be used for more than 100, or even 1,000, 10,000 and more years. It was not a consumable item like alchemical pills. As a result, array masters most probably did not earn as much money as alchemists. Thankfully, I am the Alchemy Emperor. Otherwise, if I want to cultivate martial arts and have to refine array stones as well, how else would I earn so much money to burn? Ling Han shook his head. As he walked on the streets, he could clearly see that there were considerably more cultivators around him. The Northern Region Prodigy Tournament was about to begin, which would naturally attract cultivators to come. Some were here to participate in the tournament, whereas some were here to watch the excitement. Shui Gu Cheng, battle with me. A large shout was heard from somewhere ahead of him. You maniac, this is a busy street in the city. If we battle here, how many people would die? Both of us would be chased out of Extreme Yang City, an angry voice yelled back. Now that my battle spirit has arisen, I don't care about so much, come battle. A figure leaped up high. The figure was quite small in build, yet was wielding a heavy hammer that was much taller than him. Merely the hammer was taller and wider than his body. Idiot! Another person leaped up and jumped onto the roof of a building, then left quickly. Chapter 427, Stomping onto Ji De Rong. Shui Gu Cheng, ranked 20th on last year's Prodigy roll, cultivation level at the second layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. However, from what he could see today, he was shockingly already at the 4th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. That was very normal. Beneath the flower blossom tier, there was a large number of alchemical pills that could speed up cultivation rate. There would definitely be powerful sects to support these kinds of geniuses, so they were absolutely capable of producing an overwhelming change in their cultivation in a year's time. And if it was not because he was worried that he would spoil things through excessive enthusiasm, Shui Gu Cheng's cultivation could possibly be even higher. For example, Zhu Xuan'er's information indicated that she was only in the 2nd layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, yet now, she had shockingly advanced to the 5th layer. To these prodigies, their cultivation would differ greatly after every few months, so if one still looked at them based on the previous judgment, they would definitely be deceived. The person ranked after Shui Gu Cheng was Ji De Rong, and according to the information on the records, Ji De Rong was unwilling to accept his ranking. Thus, he would challenge the former every single time they met. That small figure just now must be Ji De Rong, which fit his description on the records very well. As the time for the Prodigy tournament grew nearer, more and more characters from various backgrounds were beginning to show up. Ling Han shook his head. Ken Yi, Lu Yutong, and Zhu Wujiu all wanted to take part in the Prodigy tournament this time. Moreover, they were very ambitious. Not only did they want to get onto the ranking list, they also wanted to fight for a high ranking, but from the look of things now, they did not have much hope. Initially, Ken Ye's cultivation was the highest, and he had the highest chance of getting a good position in the rankings. However, he had already broken through to the spiritual ocean tier before he refined the heavenly luck stone. Thus, unless he broke through to the spiritual pedestal tier, there would be no way for the heavenly luck stone to have effect on him. Thus, his current ability to challenge a superior opponent was at most equal to Zhu Wujiu's after the latter broke through to the spiritual ocean tier, and was far beneath Lu Yutong after she broke through to the spiritual ocean tier. If he was not able to gain an overwhelming advantage in terms of cultivation level, his battle prowess was definitely not as strong as Lu Yutong's. As Ling Han mused, he continued to walk towards Forget Not. It was almost time for lunch. However, when he reached the restaurant, he shockingly saw that someone had punched a large hole into one of the side walls of the restaurant. It was currently under repair, so there was not one customer inside the restaurant. He frowned and asked, "What's going on here?" Just now, there were two maniacs fighting. One of them was hit and his body crashed this way, creating a large hole in the restaurant's wall. Thankfully, he only injured a few waiters. There were no fatalities, Zhu Wujiu said very gloomily. Ling Han was instantly angered and asked, "Did one of them have a small build, holding onto a hammer?" "Yes." Zhu Wujiu nodded, then asked in shock, "How did young Master Han know?" Ling Han did not answer his question, and instead turned around and left. "Young Master Han, where are you going?" Zhu Wujiu hurriedly caught up with him. Naturally to find those two bastards and call them to accounts, asking for compensation. Ling Han said with a dark expression. "Young Master Han, those two are ranked on the Prodigy roll, and both are in the spiritual pedestal tier. One is ranked 20th, whereas the other is ranked 21st. Zhu Wujiu said with a trembling voice. He had not known previously, but when he heard the discussions of passers-by later, he found out that those two maniacs actually had such impressive backgrounds. Ling Han did not even turn his head and said, "So what? I'll give them a thrashing first, then drag them back to work for a month." Zhu Wujiu could not help but shiver. He knew that Ling Han was very powerful and had astonishing battle prowess. But there was still a large gulf of a whole major cultivation tier between them. Furthermore, Shui Cheng and Ji De Rong were both characters on the Prodigy roll, and similarly had impressive ability to challenge a stronger opponent than themselves. They were not to be trifled with. "You stay here. There needs to be someone on standby at the restaurant," Ling Han said darkly. "Yes, yes." Zhu Wujiu nodded. When he recalled that Ling Han was an Earth-grade alchemist, he could not help but relax internally. Even if the person ranked first in the Prodigy roll came, they'd still have to lower their heads and address him respectfully as Grandmaster when they saw Ling Han. How could he have forgotten that? He'd spent so much time worrying it pointlessly. Ling Han strode forwards, and made queries all the way. Shui Cheng and Ji De Rong were battling furiously, so they naturally left a trail of witnesses behind them. At this moment, they were all discussing heatedly, so there was no need for Ling Han to deliberately ask as they were all talking about it. Thus, Ling Han very easily followed the battle trail that the two had left behind, but after over a dozen minutes, he heard a passerby say that the two had already concluded their battle and returned to their respective residences. Ling Han first followed that shorty with a small build holding a hammer. He queried all the way, and arrived in front of an inn. He gave a large shout, and called out, "Shorty G, get out here." The inn that had been very noisy immediately became very quiet. What was going on here? Someone actually dared tell someone ranked 21st on the prodigy roll to get out, calling him Shorty G? That was practically poking a hornet's nest, right? Who did not know that even though Ji De Rong was not ranked first on the prodigy roll, in terms of fiery temper, he was definitely one of the top 3? Pung! True enough, a moment later, a window was crashed open, and a small figure leaped out. Initially, it was not possible for him to create much damage with such a small figure, but who asked him to have a huge hammer slung on his shoulder? Due to the collision, he had practically split the whole room into 2 halves. What bastard dares to insult your Lord Ji? Ji De Rong's eyes were wide with anger. To be able to stay on the prodigy roll, he could only be 30 years old at most, but looking at his whole face that was completely concealed by his sideburns and beard, he looked to be 40 years old or above. Ling Han walked over and said, "You idiot, you damaged my restaurant. I am here to take you back to work as a waiter." Ha ha ha. When Ji De Rong heard his words, he was initially dumbfounded, then laughed loudly. He had not heard wrongly, had he? Someone was actually here to capture him to work in their restaurant as a waiter? He looked Ling Han over a few times and said, "You are quite interesting, but you should not joke around with your Lord Ji. Joking your sister." Ling Han leaped over, then raised one foot into the air which headed in a kick towards Ji De Rong's face. Insolence! Ji De Rong was enraged. Though he admired Ling Han's sense of humor, this young man actually dared to kick him. This was really too daring for him. He decided to make Ling Han suffer a little, but he would spare the latter's life, so that he could tell him a few jokes and relieve his boredom. He moved and casually grabbed Ling Han's foot. But his expression immediately changed greatly, because this kick from Ling Han possessed terrible force behind it, which gave rise to a cold feeling in him. Fuck, was this really a young man in the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier? Pung! A foot landed solidly onto Ji De Rong's face. Due to the great force behind it, he was undoubtedly trampled onto the ground. Pung! Instantly, a hold appeared on the ground as his whole head had sunk into the ground. There was much destructive power behind this kick. So what if Ji De Rong was someone ranked on the prodigy roll? The impact still knocked him unconscious. His limbs drooped uselessly around him, and he looked like a dead dog. Those around them had all paled in shock. There was a considerable number of cultivators in this inn. Some were here to take part in the upcoming prodigy tournament, while some were here to watch the tournament. Naturally, they all recognized who Ji De Rong was. But it was precisely this young elite that was knocked unconscious by one stomp of someone's foot. This instantly made a great number of people who had intended to take part in the tournament think of withdrawing. My gosh, with such a monster there, what was the point in participating? He could teach them the harshness of reality at any moment. All of a sudden, their surroundings were completely silent. Chapter 428, Finding Shui Gu Cheng again. Dark Angel _ Interesting. There was an open window on the 3rd floor of the inn, and a tall, slender man could be seen through it. He looked to be about 30 years old, but was extremely handsome. His hair was black and thick as well. He belonged to the category of extremely handsome, dashing young man that would make a woman go crazy. Yu Kuan-luan, ranked first on the prodigy roll. However, he had just passed 30 years of age, and so was no longer qualified to participate in the prodigy tournament this year. Junior sister, this person should be one of your strongest opponents in the prodigy tournament, he said, turning his head. There was a girl standing beside the window too. She had a deity-like graceful bearing, with a shapely body which would draw covetous eyes to her. There was a thin silk veil hiding her face, but her beautiful features could vaguely be seen. Her black hair cascaded down her shoulders like a waterfall, and her complexion was fair like the most beautiful jade. She could easily stir up one's heart. She looked down below and said disdainfully, "Firstly, Ji De Rong was too careless. He completely had not thought that a person in the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier would have the battle prowess at the level of the spiritual pedestal tier. Secondly, Ji De Rong's battle prowess is only worth 10 battle stars. Junior sister really has high aspirations. 10 battle stars of battle prowess is only judged as, only, in your eyes." Yukunluan laughed loudly, and the eyes that looked upon that girl were obviously filled with adoration. This was an extreme genius that had just recently risen from the Great Mercy sect. Her name was Huang Han. She was only 22 years old this year, but her cultivation had already reached the 3rd layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. She had not participated in the Prodigy tournament last year because her cultivation level at that time was too low, and it was only 2 years ago that she suddenly rose up powerfully. She advanced all the way at a terrifying speed, which alerted the higher ranks of the Great Sorrow sect. Currently, she was already included on the list of core disciples to be heavily developed by the sect. Yukunluan had come this time firstly to watch the battles, and secondly to serve as a protective escort for Huang Han. Huang Han acted as if she had not seen Yukunluan's adoring gaze upon her. Her aspirations were too high. Even if Yukunluan was currently ranked first on the prodigy roll, she was still unmoved. She idolized those geniuses from the middle state. She heard just 2 months ago that a genius from the middle state had appeared and had a great battle with the golden blood demonic ape in the dark devil forest, and even the flower blossom tier cultivators from the older generation paled in comparison to his brilliance. That was a real dragon amongst humans. On a tower farther away, Shenzhong Cheng's hand uncontrollably gripped the hilt of his sword, and his eyes that looked upon Ling Han were filled with battle spirit. He had already broken through to the spiritual pedestal tier since he was unable to obtain the heavenly luck stone. He could only break through when he had perfected his cultivation level. This young man would be worth a battle. Even further away, there was a plump young man who had squeezed into the crowd. He quietly moved and noiselessly removed the spatial ring from the hand of a young man at the spiritual pedestal tier. He walked to one side, giggled and said, "That tanned brother of mine seemed to have become stronger and stronger. Ling Han, we've met again." On another tall tower, Yan Tianzhao's figure appeared. At this moment, the aura exuding from him was shockingly that of the peak period of the spiritual pedestal tier. A green-colored light flickered within his eyes, and took form into various patterns which were extremely strange-looking. Ling Han picked Ji De Rong up, and with a wave of his hand, the blood-sucking origin gold was drawn. He used it to tie up the legs of the shorty, then went back the way he came. Chilla, like a piece of dirt cloth, Ji De Rong was dragged off by him. The spectators all hissed. That was an elite of the spiritual pedestal tier, and moreover someone on the prodigy roll. In the future, as long as he did not fall, he would definitely break through to the flower blossom tier. Yet he dragged him like he was a damn dog. Was that really proper? However, Ling Han was completely uncaring. It was not that he had never offended anyone in the flower blossom tier. Let's make a count. Ao Feng was one, Elder Nine Clouds was one, Yao Huiyu was another, so how could he fear someone that would only break through to the flower blossom tier in the future? He was now going off to find Shui Cheng. Since these two damaged his restaurant and wounded his staff, then before his employees recovered, these two guys would have to become waiters in his restaurant in compensation. This kick that Ji De Rong suffered was really heavy. He had actually not regained consciousness even when he was being dragged like this. Thankfully, spiritual pedestal tier cultivators endlessly used their origin power to refine their physical bodies, so they definitely had tough, sturdy skin, so it was all right even if he was being dragged along in this manner. Otherwise, he would have already been badly mangled. Ling Han made queries about where Shui Cheng had gone. When they saw that he was dragging a person behind him, the person he asked was a bit troubled, and dared not tell him. However, there were some who were motivated by the desire to see the world in chaos who happily told him where he could find Shui Cheng, and even took the initiative to lead him there. Shui Cheng was currently having an enjoyable time in the Listen to the Rain Pavilion. Listen to the Rain Pavilion. This was an extremely luxurious money-squandering establishment of the city. However, because payment could be settled with gold and silver, it was not such a big deal to cultivators. Any amount of gold and silver was only worldly objects, so they would naturally spend it freely for fun and entertainment. Ling Han was dragging the elite cultivator currently ranked 21st on the prodigy roll as he walked openly in the streets. This naturally caused a commotion and attracted more and more people to follow behind him, laughing all the way. This joke was really too big. Who is this young man that is actually capable of defeating Ji De Rong? Not sure. However, it's not because he is really stronger than Ji De Rong, but rather it was Ji De Rong who was too careless and provided him an opening that he could take advantage of. But no matter how careless he was, he's still a spiritual pedestal tier cultivator. Now that we're on the subject, didn't the white-robed Sword King also defeat quite a number of spiritual pedestal tier cultivators when his cultivation level was only at the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier? How could those spiritual pedestal tier cultivators compare with Ji De Rong? Furthermore, another year has passed, so no matter what, Ji De Rong's cultivation would have increased considerably, and he is definitely not one who can be defeated by an opponent in the spiritual ocean tier. You're making me more and more curious. Who exactly is this young man? Everyone were discussing and chatting noisily, all of them very curious. How did such a monstrous young man appear so suddenly? It was obvious that there would be a place for Ling Han in the new round of the Prodigy tournament. Furthermore, his rank would definitely not be low, either. Perhaps he might even be able to suppress the high rank that the white-robed Sword King had achieved 3 years ago. Firstly, Ling Han was stronger, and secondly, a great number of people had passed 30 years old and were taken off the Prodigy roll. Ling Han walked in front, whereas the crowd walked behind. This troop was really quite majestic, and they walked all the way to the Listen to the Rain Pavilion. Toothpick Shui, get out here. Ling Han similarly called out like he had done previously. His voice was like thunder, and no matter how loud the music and dancing was inside, it could not conceal his thunderous volume. Ji De Rong, you bastard. If you want a fight, I am willing to oblige, but in another month, you're going to die. Shui Cheng's furious voice was heard, and within a short while, he had rushed out. Shui Cheng was much better than Ji De Rong appearance-wise. He had a slender, tall build, and a noble, dignified air around him. His bronze skin looked like he had had oil rubbed on his skin. When he rushed out, he realized that something was off. Ji De Rong was actually being dragged on the ground as if he was a dead dog. How could this be possible? He turned to look at Ling Han. In terms of power, he was actually on equal footing with Ji De Rong. The power gap between the two of them was really too small. If Ling Han was able to defeat Ji De Rong, then naturally he would be able to defeat him too. Who wanted to be embarrassed in public? Thus, unless there was no other option for it, he definitely did not want to get into a battle with Ling Han. Young man, where have I offended you? Shui Cheng asked seriously. Ling Han humphed, delivered another kick to Ji De Rong, and said, you and this idiot were fighting right out in the open street and damaged the wall of my restaurant. You two also caused injuries to a few of my staff. It is precisely a busy time when there is a shortage of staff. Thus, I can only take the two of you back so that you can work as waiters for a month as replacement. When everyone heard this, they felt the corners of their mouths twitch. For such a trivial, minuscule matter, he actually thrashed an elite cultivator on the prodigy roll to the extent that he resembled a dead dog? If Ji De Rong knew, he would definitely holler curses. When had elite cultivators on the prodigy roll become so cheap that they would actually be put on par with ordinary waiters? Chapter 429, Capturing to Work. Dark Angel _ After getting a kick, Ji De Rong finally woke up. His eyes snapped open, yet was still a little confused. However, he immediately realized that something was off, and shouted loudly all of a sudden, "You brat, aren't you going to quickly let go of your grandpa Ji? Let us have a grand battle of 300 rounds. A defeated opponent still dares to speak bold words?" Ling Han gave him another kick. "Ah pay, that's because your grandpa Ji was too careless. Otherwise, a brat in the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier like you. Grandpa Ji would be able to crush you with one hand behind my back." Yet Ji De Rong continued to swear with absolutely no intention of admitting his defeat. Ling Han did not pay any further attention to him, but instead turned towards Shui Cheng and said, "You come over here and allow me to give you a good thrashing, then I'll bring you back to work as a waiter in my restaurant." "Hung." Shui Cheng sneered. When he heard Ji De Rong's words, he finally knew what was going on here. Ling Han was indeed very strong, but he was only in the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Ji De Rong had indeed been careless. And who was he? Shui Cheng, ranked 20th on the prodigy roll. At that time, the white-robed Sword King was enough of a monster, right? Yet wasn't he still ranked after him? And now, he was in the 3rd layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, with battle prowess soaring straight up to 8 battle stars, so how could a mere cultivator in the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier stand against that? "Then I shall come teach you a lesson," he said with a smile. Ji De Rong had been defeated by Ling Han, and if he now defeated Ling Han, how could Ji De Rong still have the face to challenge him to a fight again in future? Facing a boor like Ji De Rong, in truth, Shui Cheng felt very troubled. Ling Han waved his hand and 7 golden rods appeared. Wang, the array was activated and a white snake appeared in thin air. It gushed into Ling Han's body and forcibly increased his battle prowess by another 2 battle stars. "Array Master?" Shui Cheng was shocked. In this era, there were pitifully few array masters, they were even rarer than alchemists. However, they definitely should not be underestimated. Ling Han once again drew the demon birth sword. A lot of people had seen it before in the dark demonic forest anyways, so he couldn't bother to continue keeping it under wraps. The strongest cultivators in the North region were at most in the spiritual infant tier, and faced with his status as an earth-grade alchemist, they at least dared not snatch it from him in public. As for cultivators stronger than that, they could not make their way here. Even if they did, their prowess would be greatly suppressed and weakened. Before attempting such a journey, anyone would have to consider carefully if such a price was worth it. Shui Cheng instantly felt his knees become a little weak. Even if merely a sliver of aura seeped out of a level 10 spirit tool, how could it be ordinary? And that was still thanks to the fact that he had formed 7 flashes of chi and entered into the ranks of rulers, so there was not too serious an effect on him. "Come battle." Ling Han smiled calmly. Shui Cheng felt a headache coming on. His opponent had an array as well as a high-level spirit tool. It appeared he had a terrifying background behind him. It seemed like he could draw out another priceless treasure at any time, which made his self-confidence take a sharp drop. But there was no turning back now. In front of so many people, how could he possibly shy away from battle? "If it's a fight you want, then I shall oblige." With a great leap, he pounced. A cold light surged forth, and he, too, had drawn a spirit tool of his own. It was a long saber, and he slashed it furiously at Ling Han. No matter what, he was indeed much superior in terms of cultivation level, so he was at an absolute advantage in power. Thus, he had cast aside all kinds of flashy moves, intending to have a clash of brute force with Ling Han. This was the surest way for him to win this battle. Ling Han used the 4 seasons sword technique. Sword intent of the various seasons gushed forth in a continuous cycle, circulating according to his will. Compared with Lord Ji's instant defeat, Shui Gucheng's condition was much, much better. At least he was capable of exchanging a number of blows with Ling Han, which made Ji De Rong extremely displeased. Didn't this mean that he was inferior to Shui Gucheng then? Brat, you really do have some skill. Shui Gucheng's true skill was forced out bit by bit, he no longer dared to have the slightest reservation. This young man was really much, much too strong. Ling Han, on the other hand, moved smoothly and skillfully. Though the benefits brought by the heavenly luck stone were not visible yet, after the installation of power from the Black Tower, there was an extremely big upgrade to his physique, and his personal battle prowess was on a completely different level from before. Who knew how much higher his current battle prowess was compared to 20 battle stars of the spiritual ocean tier? After all, he was capable of shaking an opponent with 8 battle stars in spiritual pedestal tier. This was something unbelievable to a great many of the spectators. The spectators all around them were already struck dumb. This was really too much of a monster, right? There was Cheng in the last round, but even he could only stand against an opponent in the first layer of the spiritual pedestal tier when his cultivation level was the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Yet Ling Han could stand on equal grounds with a cultivator at the 3rd layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, which forcefully raised the record by 2 whole levels. Drawing the saber to cut water, destroying emotion and cutting off roots. Shui Gucheng shouted loudly and used a great move. His long saber slanted, and 7 flashes of saber chi surged, actually bringing along with them over 100 saber images that gushed forth towards Ling Han. Ling Han was slightly surprised. This saber technique was a bit like the mysterious 3000. However, his opponent's saber chi could only form over a dozen saber images, which was far from being capable of equaling the might of the mysterious 3000. Still, in terms of essence, these two techniques were the same. Indeed, there was no shortage of ability in the world. However, the inheritance of the Heaven's Sword sect could even be related to the realm of gods, and had existed for millennia without deteriorating. It was naturally not something that other sects could compare with. Ling Han did not step back, but rather advanced. At the very moment that his opponent used such a huge move, it was also the very same moment when his defense was at its weakest. When they saw that Ling Han actually went forth against the saber images, everyone was astonished. Though everyone knew that this moment was the time when Shui Gucheng's defense was the weakest, the problem was, with such a terrifying attack ahead, after forcefully parrying so many saber flashes, he himself would be severely wounded, so how could he still possibly be able to launch his own attack on Shui Gucheng? But what shocked them was that Ling Han's figure waved and bent as if he was a withered leaf dancing in the wind. His nimble movements allowed him to weave smoothly around all obstructions in his way and appear in front of Shui Gucheng. He was now capable of shooting out 1,000 sword flashes, and so was naturally very familiar with this kind of attack. Additionally, he also had the divine sense of the heaven tier, which allowed him to successfully accomplish what to everyone seemed to be an impossible feat. Pang! Ling Han shot out a fist, which solidly landed on Shui Gucheng's face. Aya! Shui Gucheng yelled in pain, and was instantly knocked over onto the ground. He had passed out completely from the blow. With a wave of his hand, the blood-sucking origin gulls became even longer and thinner. Ling Han tied Shui Gucheng up as well. Who is so bold that dares to make trouble at my Listen to the Rain pavilion? An arrogant voice was heard, and a young man walked out of the tower. But the moment he saw Ling Han, his whole body shook, and he dared not utter one more word. Instead, he simply turned around and fled. It was precisely Lu Qiyuan. How could he not be afraid of Ling Han? He hadn't even done anything. He had only threatened him a bit and went to his restaurant one time, yet was almost beaten to death by his own grandfather. And to give Ling Han an explanation, his grandfather had even destroyed the Lang clan. That was a god of misfortune, whoever dared trifle with him would be hit with bad luck. There were naturally some who recognized Lu Qiyuan among the crowds, and when they saw him behave like a mouse that had encountered a cat when he saw Ling Han, they all were shocked. In terms of martial arts and power, Ji De Rong and Shui Gucheng were naturally far superior to Lu Qiyuan, but in terms of status, as the grandson of an Earth-grade alchemist, the latter did not have a low status and was in fact a local bully around these parts. Yet even Lu Qiyuan was so scared of Ling Han. Exactly what background did this young man have? Ling Han merely smiled. Dragging Shui Gucheng and Ji De Rong behind him, he left. "Brat, release your grandpa Ji this instant!" Ji De Rong yelled. His cultivation had been sealed by Ling Han, so he could only crawl on the ground with two hands like a dog. Though it looked a bit pathetic, it was still better than being dragged off. "Speak less rubbish and obediently work for me for a month." Ling Han humphed. Chapter 430, Special Training. Dark Angel _ When they saw Ling Han return dragging two dead dogs behind him, everyone in Forget-Not were dumbfounded. That was too awesome, wasn't it? Those two were geniuses close to the top 20 on the prodigy roll, and Ling Han simply knocked them out just like that? By now, Lu Yutong and the others had returned as well. Naturally, they were made aware of the situation and they, too, were extremely shocked. Ling Han actually managed to easily capture two elite cultivators on the prodigy roll. That kind of battle prowess was really too astonishing. Ling Han withdrew the blood-sucking origin gold and said, "Wuxia, you watch over them and have them work hard. If they dare to goof off, give them a good thrashing. There's no need to be reserved." He had already sealed off both their cultivation. "Yes." Zhu Wujiu hurriedly nodded. Since that was what Ling Han had said, then no matter what, he would obey. Who cared what sect or faction stood behind these two? Shui Gucheng returned to consciousness, but with his cultivation sealed, he could only bow his head and concede. Otherwise, if he was really thrashed by a minor character like Zhu Wujiu, how could he bear with the humiliation? Ji De Rong had complained the whole way, but had also become obedient. The both of them really did obediently carried trays and served dishes. They had really become waiters in the restaurant. The hole in the wall had been temporarily blocked up, and the restaurant was once again in business. As it was well known, there was naturally no shortage of customers, and there were some who had followed Ling Han all the way here. When they saw that there were two elites on the prodigy roll working as waiters here, how could they not come in for a meal too? In the future, if they said that they had once been served by someone on the prodigy roll before, wouldn't that attract massive amounts of envy? When they got hold of the menu, they first experienced a shock. What kind of damn thing was this? The price of one dish was actually one origin crystal? But when they saw that so many others had already placed their orders, added together with the fact that the aroma was indeed tempting, they, too, could not help but order a dish to have a taste. There was naturally no need to explain the result of their decision. "Waiter, give me another serving of this extreme treasure." "Me too." "Here too." Shui Gucheng and Ji De Rong really wanted to cry but had no tears left. Just think, the two of them were ranked elite cultivators on the prodigy roll, yet they had now fallen to the level of waiters carrying serving trays. What was even more depressing was the fact that the business of this place was extremely booming, which made them race and scramble back and forth. This was even more tiring than fighting in a battle. "How many of you want to take part in the prodigy tournament?" On the third floor, Ling Han asked the group. "Me. Me. Me." Lu Yutong and the others all raised their hands. Except for Li Xichan and Guang Yuan, everyone expressed their desire to participate. Even Hunyou raised her small hand high up into the air. Ling Han gave them a look over. Kenyi was now in the third layer of the spiritual ocean tier and had 9 battle stars of battle prowess. Lu Yutong was in the first layer of the spiritual ocean tier, and her battle prowess was 10 battle stars. Zhu Wujiu was in the first layer of the spiritual ocean tier, with battle prowess of 9 battle stars. He said, "There is still about a month's time. Let me think of how to give you guys some special training and help you all increase your battle prowess to at least 15 battle stars. Otherwise, it'd be better for you not to go and embarrass yourselves. There's just 1 month, can we really improve so much?" Lu Yutong was a little disbelieving. Ling Han showed off what looked to be the smile of a demon and replied, "Believe me. As long as you all will not have died, it will not be difficult for you to reach 15 battle stars." When they saw that kind of smile on his face, Lu Yutong and the others all shivered, feeling coldness wrap around their entire bodies. They felt a strong sense of foreboding. Ling Han rubbed Hunyou's head and said, "From the looks of the current situation, only Niu would be able to get into the ranks, and it would not be hard for her to make it into the top 10. He paused a moment, then said, "If Niu breaks through to the spiritual pedestal tier, then the first place would be in the bag." Hee hee. Hunyou laughed proudly, showing off her little white teeth. Lu Yutong and the others were all astonished. They had never imagined that Ling Han would judge Hunyou so highly. This was just a 6-year-old little girl. Moreover, Hunyou was going to break through to the spiritual pedestal tier. Hiss. "Wait, young Master Han, are you not participating?" Zhu Wujiu asked blankly. "Che, there's no prize, so why would I participate?" Ling Han fanned his hand, waving off the question. Kenyi was shocked and exclaimed, "Young Master Han, being able to rank onto the prodigy role represents the ultimate glory." Ling Han merely smiled. As someone who had once been the Alchemy Emperor and an elite cultivator of the Heaven tier in his last life, did he need a ranking on the prodigy role to prove himself? Moreover, after he had met Yao Huiyu, he had increasingly not taken this prodigy role seriously. "Niu is enough. Get first place, give Ling Han," Hunyou declared, patting her little chest. Ling Han laughed loudly and said, "All right, then this time will depend on Niu." 2 geniuses on the prodigy role had actually regressed to working as waiters in a restaurant. This naturally created a tumultuous commotion. Every day, there would be visitors attracted to come. Their initial reason was naturally to experience the wonderful feeling of being served by someone fond the prodigy role. However, as long as they had eaten the precious delicacies of forget-not, there would definitely be huge groups of return customers. Unfortunately, there was limited space in the restaurant. Even if it opened from morning all the way to late night, customers had still lined up in long queues, which made Lu Yutong think of opening up a branch. After getting Ling Han's approval, she immediately began looking for a new venue in high spirits. In the blink of an eye, another 10 days had passed, and Lu Yutong and the others have also experienced a real hell-like cultivation session within the Black Tower. Ling Han was really training them to the point of near death. The difficulty of their training was enough to cause shivers. Every day, when their training had ended, they would immediately fall asleep the moment they lay down. This also caused Lu Yutong's plan to choose a new venue to be postponed until further notice. However, the effects were also extremely shocking. After squeezing out the potential hidden in all of them, the cultivation of Lu Yutong and the others had very visibly improved. This made Guang Yuan envious, and he, too, joined them for the training. As a result, very soon, they experienced both pain and pleasure at the same time. The Four's cultivation improved very quickly, but this experience had also become a nightmare that would follow them for the rest of their lives. Ling Han went off to the Spirit Treasures Pavilion again and made some more queries about the 9-leaf black Ganoderma, but Yin Hong still told him to wait. He then went to Forget Not. At this moment, Lu Yutong and the others were training like crazy in the Black Tower, so he naturally had to take charge of more of the restaurant's matters. Get lost. However, he had just arrived at Forget Not and had not yet entered when two people stopped him from going further. What a joke, this was his business, and there was actually someone hailing him over in front of his own business. This whole place has been reserved by my young master. It will not serve any others today, so get lost. Get lost. One man waved his hand at Ling Han disdainfully. Ling Han frowned. He had never allowed the whole restaurant to be reserved before. Looks like this so-called young master had done so by force. Since the latter had done things forcefully, he would not be reserved, either. He directly stretched out both hands and picked up the two of them. Then he pulled the two of them towards each other. The two of them were knocked unconscious. He walked in and saw that his waiters were trembling with fear. Meanwhile, Shui Gucheng and Ji De Rong had a few footprints on their bodies. Obviously, they had been kicked. There was only a single table in the whole hall on the first floor, where a young man sat. He had an arrogant demeanor as if he wanted nothing more to walk around with his nose pointing up at the sky. He was at most 20 years old, and there were 4 servants standing behind him. All of them wore expressions of flattery. Hey, the taste is really not bad. Really not bad, the young man said, as he continued eating. Ling Han walked over, and those 4 servants immediately turned towards Ling Han, and rebuked, "My young master has booked this whole place. Get out of here. This is the first time that I have heard that the owner can't even enter his own place," Ling Han stated calmly. "Oh, so you're the boss of this restaurant?" The young man glanced towards Ling Han, beckoned him over, and said, "You don't have to open up business this month. After I have finished watching the Prodigy tournament, you just follow me back. I guarantee that it will not be your loss." "Aren't you going to thank young Master Long?" the 4 servants reprimanded at the same time. Chapter 431, Zhu Xuan'er's younger brother Dark Angel _ Ling Han smiled and said, "Really, thanks a lot." That young Master Long looked very pleased with himself, but he had just barely completed the thought when he felt his vision darken. With a bang, his face was already crashed onto the table. With such a huge impact, the whole table split apart into multiple pieces, and his face was covered in soup. "How dare you!" the 4 servants yelled furiously and moved to grab Ling Han. Pang, 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 pang. Ling Han instantly shot out 4 punches. The 4 servants gripped their chests tightly, their faces pale. They fell seated on the ground, feeling as if they had a breath of air that was stuck in their air pipes. It was too horrible a feeling for mere words to describe. "Fuck, who asked you to be arrogant?" Ji De Rong rushed forwards and gave the 4 of them a round of punches and kicks. His cultivation had been sealed, and he had served dishes a bit too slowly. Furthermore, he was an elite cultivator on the Prodigy roll, so it was inevitable that he would have his own pride. As a result, that young man ordered his lackeys to give him a few harsh kicks. If it was not for the fact that he had the origin power of spiritual pedestal tier to refine his physical body, he would definitely have been severely wounded by now. As the saying went, when a tiger leaves the mountains and reached the plains, it'd be bullied by a dog. How could he not feel resentful? Shui Gucheng's expression was not much better than his own. However, he was not as rash as Ji De Rong, and furthermore, did not want to fall to the same level as those servants. Ling Han thought for a moment, stretched out his hand and, with a brush, unsealed the cultivation of both Ji De Rong and Shui Gucheng. He said, "Because the 2 of you have performed acceptably these 10 days, I'll consider the debt paid." Shui Gucheng and Ji De Rong were a bit disbelieving until they felt the origin power gushing forth within their bodies. That was when they felt they had woken up from a dream. They were both extremely rueful. In these 10 days when their cultivation was sealed, they lived like normal people, which allowed them to have a taste of a different life than their own. It seemed like they had unexpectedly obtained a deeper comprehension in martial arts as a result. "Bastard, you actually dare to injure me?" Young Master Long got to his feet. There was still a piece of carrot dangling about the corner of his lips, and his whole face was covered in soup. His expression was one filled with absolute fury. "Do you know who I am?" Hearing such a familiar line, "I can probably guess that you have a very awesome elder brother, or perhaps father?" Ling Han asked, smiling. "Wrong, I have an incredibly awesome elder sister." Young Master Long exclaimed proudly. "Pa!" He was once again knocked down onto the ground by a smack from Ling Han. "Really an idiot that doesn't learn." Ling Han shook his head. Ji De Rong looked at the young man and said fiercely, "Han, just hand over this brat to to me to deal with, okay?" He licked his lips, fire in his eyes. This young man was only in the 7th layer of the gushing spring tier, yet he was actually thrashed by such a minor character. If he did not repay this favor, how could he still be considered human? In comparison, he was more convinced by Ling Han's power. The latter was indeed very strong, and he could not defeat him. "You all dare!" Young Master Long shouted loudly, "My elder sister is Xuan'er." Ji De Rong and Shui Cheng both exclaimed in surprise. Xuan'er, not only was she a well-known beauty of the North region, she was also well on the path to become the strongest of the younger generation of the North region. Her future accomplishment might possibly even exceed the spiritual infant tier. They could offend anyone except for Xuan'er, because she had too much influence. She needed only to call out, and how many young geniuses were willing to go through water and tread on fire for her sake? Peng, young Master Long was once again smacked onto the ground by Ling Han's hand. "What are you shouting for? Pay compensation." Ling Han said fiercely. "Pay compensation? Pay what compensation?" Young Master Long looked very surprised. He was the obvious victim here, wasn't he? "You broke a table in my restaurant, so shouldn't you pay for it?" Ling Han asked fiercely. "It was obviously you who smacked my head onto the table," young Master Long said weakly. With a bang, he was once again smacked onto the floor tiles, and created a hole in the floor. "How dare you, you actually broke the floor tiles in my restaurant!" Ling Han exclaimed darkly. Young Master Long felt very wronged. He was obviously being thrashed by Ling, so why was he the one being blamed? However, after being smacked consecutively for a few times, he finally realized how things were. Ling Han was even more arrogant and forceful than he was, and was unreasonable too. A person like him was usually arrogant, but was most afraid of encountering someone fiercer than them. Now, after being unreasonably beaten by Ling Han a few times, he was finally afraid. "I'll pay." He asked obediently, "How much?" Ling Han snatched the spatial ring that he was wearing, directly erased the divine sense that he had left on it, and swept his own divine sense within. There were actually a few thousand origin crystals inside. He could not help but smile and said, "I'll just take this sum, I won't bear a grudge for it being too little." "You are practically committing robbery here," young Master Long complained. Ling Han tossed him a glare. Young Master Long hurriedly shook his head and said, "Of course. Of course. You can get lost now." With a casual toss of his hand, Ling Han had thrown young Master Long out, and did the same with his 4 servants. "Just you wait and see, I will definitely come back." After young Master Long had raced off a certain distance, he cast out a line that fit the situation, then broke out into a mad run again. Ling Han could not help but laugh loudly. Profligate young masters were really profligate young masters, they only knew how to use their powerful connections as an intimidation tactic. "Ling Han, 20 days later, I shall see you at the Prodigy Tournament. By then, I will definitely not lose to you," Shui Cheng declared coldly. Ling Han had heard about the rules of the Prodigy tournament before. In this kind of battle, it was not allowed to use any kind of alchemical pill or spirit tool to prevent an unjust battle. However, the Spirit Treasures Pavilion would prepare a great amount of weapons which were all forged from level 5 materials. Thought they were not spirit tools, they were extremely sturdy, and could sustain the powerful attacks of the spiritual pedestal tier. In Shui Gucheng's eyes, Ling Han had been able to defeat him merely because he had the Demon Birth Sword. Thus, since the Prodigy tournament did not allow the use of spirit tools, he naturally had a high chance of victory. Ling Han was too lazy to explain. He only waved him off. He'd just have Hunyo ravaged Shui Gucheng by then. Ji De Rong broke into a run and fled as well. After being tortured by Ling Han for 10 days, he was filled with wariness of the former, and so naturally wanted to maintain a big distance from this demon. Young Master Long, whose real name was Zhu Longxing, was indeed Zhu Xuan'er's younger brother. In truth, his martial arts talent was not too bad either, but compared with Zhu Xuan'er, there was a very big gap. Furthermore, he did not have the heated drive to pursue martial arts. As a result, since he only liked to have fun and play around, he was currently only in the 7th layer of the Gushing Spring tier. How could he bear to swallow such a huge loss by himself? He immediately raced off to look for help, and his first choice was someone who had just recently addressed him as brother and mingled with closely Lu Qiyuan. When he arrived at Listen to the Rain Pavilion, Lu Qiyuan received him warmly. Good wine and good food, and there were beauties and singers to accompany him as well, fully giving him face. Big brother Qiyuan, I was bullied by someone today. After drinking a few cups of wine, Zhu Longxing could no longer hold back and began to grumble about his grievances to Lu Qiyuan. What, there is actually someone who dares to bully a brother of Lu Qiyuan, me, in this extreme young city? Tell me, who is so bold? I shall go and cut off his head for you. Lu Qiyuan immediately declared, patting his chest. Thank you, big brother Qiyuan. Zhu Longxing quickly offered his thanks. I've made my queries, that guy's name is Ling Han. Pooh. Lu Qiyuan suddenly spat out a mouthful of wine directly onto Zhu Longxing. This made Zhu Longxing very confused. They were having a nice conversation, so what do you mean by suddenly spitting wine in my face? Ko. 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 Lu Qiyuan coughed unstoppably. He hurriedly drank some tea to calm himself, and with hope that things were not like what he had thought, said, It can't be Ling Han from Forget Not, right? It's indeed that guy. Pooh, Lu Qiyuan spat again. Extraordinarily accurately, it was Zhu Longxing's face again. Zhu Longxing. 10,000 curse words flew through his mind. Fuck, I'll forget about you spitting at me once, but twice? Do I have some kind of enmity with you? Chapter 432, Results of the Special Training. Dark Angel _ Big Brother Qiyuan, Zhu Longxing began weakly. You spat 2 times consecutively at me, and every time was so extraordinarily accurate, hitting my face directly. You did it on purpose, didn't you? Lu Qiyuan's expression became serious. He warned, Don't you ever trifle with that guy. Big brother Qiyuan, why is it that even you are scared of that guy? Zhu Longxing asked strangely. Not only you and I should not trifle with that guy, even if your elder sister was here and my grandfather moved personally, they would be able to do nothing against him either. Lu Qiyuan said, shaking his head. How could that be possible? Zhu Longxing exclaimed in shock. He is an earth-grade alchemist. Lu Qiyuan revealed the secret. Pooh. Zhu Longxing spat out his mouthful of tea, and very coincidentally, it was right onto Lu Qiyuan's whole face. He suddenly erupted into a long bout of coughing. Earth-grade alchemist? A young man who was not even 20 years old yet? That was really too shocking. Lu Qiyuan could not help but wear a bitter expression. You did it on purpose, didn't you? Smearing my whole face in revenge, right? But it was he who had first spat at Zhu Longxing, so it would not be appropriate for him to say anything in rebuke. There was naturally a beautiful female attendant who delivered a wet towel for him to wipe his face. Really? Zhu Longxing finally spoke. Lu Qiyuan sighed, thinking, am I that kind of fellow who would be willing to be spat on just for the sake of a lie? He nodded and said, listen to my advice, and don't trifle with that guy. Previously, I offended him, and was almost beaten to death by Grandpa. Hiss, so ruthless. Zhu Longxing was extremely shocked and exclaimed, Big Brother Qiyuan, you're the only descendant of the Lu clan. There's nothing to be done. Just think, how old is that guy now, but yet he's already an Earth-grade alchemist. It's very possible for him to become a heaven-grade alchemist in future. So do you think that my grandpa should give him face or not? Lu Qiyuan shook his head. Zhu Longxing's face was also filled with astonishment. When he thought that his elder sister was currently looking for heaven-grade alchemists, and if Ling Han became a heaven-grade alchemist, then with his sister who had a request to make of him, how would he be able to measure up to Ling Han? Perhaps, this guy might even possibly become his brother-in-law. Brother-in-law? That didn't sound too bad. With an Earth-grade alchemist, or even a heaven-grade alchemist as his brother-in-law, how awesome was that? Thank you, Big Brother Qiyuan. I almost caused a big mess. He breathed out a breath of relief. As the day of the Prodigy tournament grew increasingly closer, there were also more and more young elite cultivators appearing in Extreme Yang City. It was inevitable that young people would be impetuous, and fights and trouble were unavoidable. However, no other fight happened in Forget Not. There was nothing to be done. 2 elites on the Prodigy roll worked here for about 10 days, and they were both about the 20th place. This made all those ranked below 20 think of this restaurant as some place sacred. If you want to make trouble here, no matter what, you should be more powerful than Shui Gu Cheng and Ji De Rong. Moreover, even Zhu Xuan'er's younger brother met with a defeat here, yet there was no sign of Zhu Xuan'er coming here to stand up for her brother, which showed how strong the background the restaurant's owner had. It wasn't that no one had borne any devious schemes, but with 2 such shocking situations there, who would dare attempt sponging off a Forget Not? Another 20 days passed. The Prodigy tournament would begin officially tomorrow. Within the Black Tower, Ling Han finally ceased the special training for Lu Yutong and the others. Today would be for them to take a good rest, and from the next day onwards, it would a real battle. When they came out from the Black Tower, all of them exuded a terrifying aura. After this 1 month of hell training, they were practically able to kill anyone in their way, whether it was a human or a ghost. Kenye's cultivation was the highest. He had reached the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Guang Yuan had returned to the 9th layer as well, whereas Lu Yutong was at the 8th layer. Zhu Wujiu was the weakest, but even he had reached the 7th layer. The reason why they had managed to improve so quickly was because Ling Han had used golden needle ferrying acupuncture points on them to stimulate their hidden potential. That was how they managed to improve so much in a mere month's time. But this was squeezing out their inner potential. It meant sacrificing their future rate of cultivation as a price, but to obtain a good ranking in the Prodigy tournament, they couldn't care about it anymore. A single person could only use this kind of secret art in their whole lifetimes. If they used it a second time, their power would still increase greatly, but the problem was that their power would continue to increase uncontrollably until their physical body could no longer contain it. Their bodies would then explode and they would die. Furthermore, this was only useful before the Flower Blossom tier. After breaking through to the Flower Blossom tier, the cultivator would have cast off his mortal shell, and this kind of technique to stimulate one's hidden potential would no longer be effective. Golden needle ferrying acupuncture points, combined with the hell training session, was what allowed them to possess the current shocking cultivation rate. Ling Han and Hun Yo, on the other hand, were still at the peak of the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Ling Han possessed 2 spiritual oceans. One turned clockwise and the other counterclockwise, as if they were 2 millstones. Thus, when his cultivation increased, his origin power was only polished to become ever sturdy, but his cultivation rate was still a bit too fast and he still needed some more time to reach perfection. It would happen within these few days, he would be able to break through to the spiritual pedestal tier. After a night of rest, all the young people gathered at the great arena of Extreme Yang City. This was the property of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion. And with the enormous amount of wealth in their possession, this great arena had been constructed for the purpose of the Prodigy Tournament that would happen every 3 years. Thus, this place appeared to be very majestic and grand, and could accommodate 200,000 spectators at any one time. The circular and high spectator stands looked as if they were mountains. The first step was naturally to register. The preliminary condition for registration was to be below 30 years old. There was no other restriction. The second step was to test battle prowess. There was a stone plaque used to test one's battle prowess at the registration area. It was created by a great person in ancient times. After one shot out a full power attack at it, it would show the corresponding number of battle stars. Everyone could be ranked according to battle stars, but exactly how many would be able to make it to the actual tournament? That would depend on how many people had left the prodigy role from the last round. Subtracting those who had left due to age, as well as those that had not managed to make it in time or might even have died, the remaining people would automatically qualify for the actual tournament. There was a total of 56 this time round. Thus, a total of 144 people out of all those who came to register would be able to qualify for the actual tournament. These 200 people would draw lots based on the concept of everyone on the rankings would encounter one another and enter into a knockout battle. The last 100 remaining would be the elites of the new prodigy role of the northern region. As for how the remaining would be ranked, that was simple. They would simply battle. Every person would have a battle with the other 99 competitors, and their final rank would be calculated based on the number of their losses and victories. Then, let's go first test our battle prowess. Ling Han's group headed towards the location of the testing stone plaque. Because there was only 200 people who could qualify for the actual tournament, those ranked below 200 were naturally automatically eliminated, and there was no need for them to register. Hey, hey, hey! Did you all see that? A monster appeared just now. He is in the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, but his battle prowess is as high as 20 stars, he can almost surge up to spiritual pedestal tier. I know, that guy's name is Chu Xiaozhu, but no one knows where he came from. He's very mysterious. This guy can almost stand equal to Cheng from the previous round. He should be slightly inferior to Cheng. The white-robed Sword King is one that could defeat opponents in spiritual pedestal tier. Cheng, too, had reached the 9th layer of spiritual ocean tier just slightly over a year ago, and he has continuously polished himself since. That was why he could slice a spiritual pedestal tier opponent with his sword, and this Chu Xiaozhu may not be inferior. That's right. Chu Xiaozhu is only 19 years old. They had just reached the place when they already heard the crowds embroiled in heated discussions. There would appear a few monsters with every prodigy role. The last round could deserve the name of the Golden Roll, whereupon such extreme geniuses like Xuan'er, Zhuyu, Lu Yang, and Cheng. It was yet unknown how this round would be. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.